OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
All right, very welcome along to Tuesday morning's OTB AM. We're here with you all the way from 7:30 until 9:30, and we're here every single day of the week, except Saturdays and Sundays. So 5 days a week. That's how that works, right? Mm-hmm. It's good counting, isn't it?
You're certainly correct on your mathematical front.
Is this your last day?
Yeah, but before things get real. It is. So it lasts me for a while in this particular studio.
And you obviously don't trust Japanese barbers?
Absolutely not.
You were a bit scared.
100%.
Oh, come on. That would have been like, do your best. Turn me into whatever you want.
If Ireland make it to a World Cup semi-final and there for a bit longer, I'll have to.
I expect you to come back with like a modelling contract in Japan, you know?
So do I. Quite honest with you, I am never coming back, is my expectation.
Look at Paddy over your shoulder on the TV there.
It's kind of on him, ominous, isn't it?
Yeah, he's the voice whispering in your ear. Go on, do it. Go on. You can be yourself. Go on.
It's no longer the secret WhatsApp group we have with the Kerry Mafia. It's just Paddy over my shoulder whispering to me from beyond the grave. That's exactly how it works now.
And the bomber's like, don't listen to him. You'll regret that, son.
Yeah, I'm kind of scared, to be honest with you.
Well, it's certainly brightened up the place, I have to say. It looks great.
Yeah, it is. It's nice. Yeah. Nice mural, in fairness. You can just see Ger Power and the white shot. That's about it. But how bad?
No, the colours are great. Anyway, look, we've a very busy show for you lined up this morning for your last ever show. Yeah. What are you looking forward to? We haven't talked about this at all. What are you looking forward to the most?
Oh, it's a good question. I don't know what I'm looking forward to most, really. I guess it's getting there the day after tomorrow and actually seeing what an earthquake is like is going to be interesting. Seeing how the tremble underneath your feet.
They're fine.
You've experienced one of you?
On my J1 in San Francisco.
Any tips?
They're over before you realise it.
Okay. Hopefully I won't have to experience anything like that. I don't know.
So you're actually terrified about going away for 7 weeks to Japan, as opposed to, I can't wait for this, and this. You're like, oh my God, I'm terrified. That's essentially what's happening here.
I'm not terrified whatsoever.
The first thing you reach for, though, is like, oh, there's going to be a natural disaster.
I've never been to Asia before. So it should be a bit of an... I've been told to bring a lot of Factor 50. I'm not sure if that's more to do with me or more to do with the actual weather that's going to be the residue of this current weather storm over there at the moment. But I don't know,
Have you got a translator on your phone?
I don't. Should I get one?
So how are you going to get around?
I have a logistical plan for my first couple of days in terms of actually getting from A to B, where I need to be, where I need to stay.
You've hired someone to bring you around.
I've looked at it on Google on an English computer, aka in this very office, and right. I know where I'm getting to. And then once I pick up Wi-Fi for the first time, I'll find out where I'm going to next and go like that. I am well.
Well, you know how to pick up the Wi-Fi.
I have my own Wi-Fi.
Right.
But then also, my Airbnb has a very detailed, this is a very boring conversation, my Airbnb is a very detailed description of how to actually get onto the Wi-Fi in that particular place. So,
but to get to the Airbnb, how are you doing that? Because none of the signs are in English, obviously.
The Airbnb has an actual description of how to get from that very terminal to the front door.
Okay, very good.
So yeah, I'm very well looked after. They've been very hospitable even from...
What are you going to eat?
8,000 miles away. That is the big question. That is something I'm greatly looking forward to indulging in. I can't use chopsticks, but I'm sure people...
you can learn, right?
Yeah, exactly. That was the point I was trying to make. I'm looking forward to the educational experience that this is going to be as much as anything. Okay. And hopefully it's educational for the viewer as well, and they'll learn a thing or two.
Will you show us learning?
100%. I have a few cogs in the wheel already in terms of things that are potentially set up. A few interesting stories, a few interesting people that I'm going to speak to over in Tokyo. That's already lined up. So that should be coming your way in the next 5-6 days.
So one of our listeners / watchers yesterday was getting in touch with us from Tokyo, who had apparently won the Heineken competition to head out there. So not necessarily a regular from that vicinity, but do we have anybody else out there who's watching us this morning from anywhere in Japan? That would be good to know, wouldn't it?
That's a question down the camera.
So you could help Eoin.
That would have been a good thing to do. It's still not too late if you are out there and you want to get in touch. It'd be great to speak to you, even see what you have to say about anything really, not just the Irish rugby team. I have already been put in touch with a few Irish people over there. Task number 1 is where is showing the replay on Saturday night, 2 a.m. wandering the streets of Tokyo, kind of knocking on the door. Are you showing the replay?
You've no GEA goal set up.
I will resort to GAA Go. But like you want it in a place of a bit of atmosphere.
Yeah,
really.
there must be like the local Cumann of the Kerry Mafia.
Yeah, no, I have been in touch with the Cumann over there, as in the
Sorry, the cell of the Mafia, obviously.
So I have been in touch with the cell of the Gaelic Athletic Association in the capital of Japan, and I'm more prepared than you think, Ger. Just because I'm a bit concerned about the weather over there does not mean that I'm not ready for this, and I have got feelers out already in terms of where it's actually showing the...
Okay, that's clearly the most important thing over the next 7 weeks as we invest tens of thousands of euro in sending you to the World Cup. How you get on watching the game on Saturday night is first and foremost.
Is that not the reason why there a World Cup as well?
Good morning from Dubai, getting my daily dose, and it's my birthday, says Fintan Flannelly. Good man, Fintan, and happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday, Fintan.
Right, Johnny Sexton was in yesterday, and he's in pretty good form. A couple of days with the family before the team actually fly out on Wednesday as well.
Yes, yeah.
They're going first class though.
I presume so. They'd want to be, and they have said that they're going to press ahead with their plans to fly as well. So I'd say the weather should be cleared up by Thursday.
Glad you're letting the Irish rugby team dictate whether or not the weather's good.
Well, I'm sure that they've actually done their... I've just been like Googling Japan typhoon.
Right, okay.
Is it still bad, is what I've been Googling.
Is it still bad? Still bad?
And AccuWeather is like, yes.
You okay, hun?
Exactly. I'm like, are you okay, typhoon?
So I don't know if you saw this during the game, but obviously Dan Biggar at the... Is it the intercept try, yeah?
Yes.
So it's the intercept try. So Sexton throws an intercept and Biggar lumbers towards the line slower and treacle, and then suddenly the Irish team catch up with him just before the line, and you can hear him saying, no, didn't ground it, and so the referee doesn't even bother to check, because it's like, oh, well, look, I mean, what a great bit of Dan Biggar, straight to the top of the queue of world's leading sportsmanship people, right? Johnny Sexton knew a bit more though. Have a look.
The other mistake would be the intercept, where I've never got a ball intercepted from a line-out before, which might say something about why it was happened, but it was very clever by him. You know, when he didn't score, he said to the ref straight away, when I was asking him to check the offside, Dan said, I was no try, sir. Because he knew that if he checked the try, he would go back and check the offside, and we'd have a penalty in front of the sticks. And it was unbelievably clever by him. And I was fuming. I was saying to the ref, I was like, he's tricking you, he's tricking. So I had a good laugh with Dan.
I didn't trig that at all. Right.
Well, I don't know if anyone would have trigged it, but just he's a clever player, and he knew that he was probably going to be offside. So I had a good laugh with him after the game about it. But there's a mistake that, you know, in a big game could cost you the game, but there's nothing you could have done about it. You know, I couldn't have given the ball any earlier or late, and when you pass to someone, you don't expect someone from the opposition backline to be in your backline.
Yeah, Johnny Sexton also with his World Cup haircut. You all went to the same barbers, it looks like. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. If you fly tomorrow, you got to get a haircut yesterday. Give it 2 days before you line up. Dan Biggar, though, SMRT. It's very, very smart from him, and getting glorified on television commentary as it happened. I was sitting there. The internet was like, oh my God, Dan Biggar. Oh, you wouldn't see this in football. Yeah. Like, well, you know, it's actually the best bit of sleight of hand you've seen in a long time. / cheating. Well done, Dan Biggar. Yeah, it's extremely quick thinking. It's fantastic. You have to kind of take your cap off to him. You do wonder if that'll... if there's like karma in terms of being smart, that one day Wales will get caught with a moment like that, where hopefully, like as we discussed yesterday, hopefully that actually does happen. It's like, I don't know. You want Wales to win the World Cup? In comparison to England, I absolutely. You're on Team Gats. No question about that. But yeah, it's you wouldn't go as far as calling it skullduggery. You just call it extremely intelligent game awareness. And I'd say Johnny Sexton is somebody who could appreciate that himself as well. That if he was in that position and he had a bit of time to think about it, he would also be rushing over to the referee. And I'd say he probably... Would he have been as polite as saying, he tricked you, ref, he tricked you? I'd say, well, if it was a Six Nations game... If it had been a try? No, he says that he went to the ref at that point. He was like, he tricked you. I'd say he's probably using a bit more colourful language than that. No, you can't though, because it's all mic'd up. Good point, actually. The value of having the referees mic'd is that people will swear far less. I mean, you can hear them in the... Obviously, occasionally you can hear a couple of people. There was a famous instance where Sean O'Brien was calling somebody out, and then there was another one where one of our front rows was referring to Dylan Hartley in very colourful language. Famously. Which we all were like, fair enough. It's true, and then it would have been great to actually hear. I didn't actually catch what Biggar actually said to the referee, or how quickly he got over there, or what. Straight away, he was like, no need to check that, no grounding. Yeah. He wasn't grounded. It was held up, I think, was it?
They actually said no need to check that.
You think it's held up? That was how it was held up there. It's held up.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's very quick thinking, and fair play to that. Like moment number one of actual quick thinking. Before
Do you think he slows down on purpose then to get caught so that there's enough play after that so that they don't go back and check that so far away?
I think you're being very kind to Dan Bigger in that.
And his pace. He didn't have the pace of a back three there, was what the commentators were saying. No, he didn't. He did not.
Well, I think you're being a bit too
one
kind
of our
to
back three from the 80s. Yeah, you can read more about that on offtheball.com. It was unbelievably clever from him. I was fuming. That's Sexton on Bigger. And then talking about Joey Carberry as well, his rivalry advice and diffusing tensions. He says he texted Joey Carberry straight away after their game between Munster and that was last Christmas.
Yeah.
Seems a long time ago now. And we're also talking about why Gary Ringrose has slipped down Ireland's centre pecking order on offtheball.com. Dennis Cuddy's been in touch. Come on, Dennis, how you doing? Says, watching from Mumbai. Any good? Safe journey and enjoy. And my geography's not that good, but I don't think Mumbai is in Japan. How is Mumbai? I'm very interested in going to India at some point and seeing what it's like and having the Indian experience.
Have you been at any point?
Never been to India. Never been to Japan.
Never close. Right. Okay. You might make the trip if Ireland get to a World Cup final. That is the thing that happens here, is that it's such a long tournament that people probably have half plans. They're like, let's see how they're going at the end of the pool stages. If I fancy Ireland to actually win a World Cup quarter-final, I might just say, screw it, I'm taking 2 weeks off work and going over for a couple of games or whatever. I'd say there's probably a few people in that exact situation where they're thinking, will I, won't I? After England, it took them a couple of weeks ago, they were like, nah, I'll save my money.
Yeah.
After the weekend, they're like, nah, let's splash out, let's go.
Yeah. Matthew Reardon says, I'm heading over myself in a couple of weeks in the same chopstick predicament as Eoin. Looking forward to it. Will we have a repeat of your American football interview if Kerry win at the weekend?
Absolutely not.
I mean, that might be an excuse for us to dig it out. Is that an excuse for us to dig it? To send him on his merry way. The last time Eoin left the office, he went viral. So how are you going to go viral this time?
Who knows?
Viral, I said, Eoin, viral.
Who knows? That is the possibilities are endless, I think is the phrase I'm looking for here. What just happened?
Oh, I forgot you had the beard as well, the full beard.
Yeah, trim that down.
Fintan Flannery again. Inspired to get a World Cup haircut. Barbers around the country will be packed. What style is that?
3 on the sides, trim the top.
Say again?
It's 3 on the sides, trim the top, please.
All right, very good.
Any crack? Busy today?
Did you get away?
Sorry, is that part of what you're actually asking me for? Sorry, no, I just got really awkward and asked that question as a follow-up.
Ireland is playing Bulgaria tonight. We haven't been given the full team yet by Mick McCarthy, but we do know one thing. He has revealed one decision.
No. Conor Horan's playing left back tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Good head of the team.
No. That's the one little bit you'll get.
He's a nice left foot and he can pick up ball and then
Wonderful left foot, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be amazing if he played really well tomorrow and everybody goes, oh wow. And if he doesn't, well, there's nothing ventured, nothing gained. But he's one of those that's not been playing, and I'd like him to have some more minutes. He wanted to have some more minutes, so he'll be playing there.
You know, it's a bit mad.
Is it true?
Oh, it's definitely. I mean,
Did you see Seamus Coleman's face there?
I did see Sheahan Coleman's face. I wonder, was it breaking news to him as well? I can't tell. I couldn't tell. Was that a really? Is that what? Just keep your eye on Seamus Coleman's face here. So look, steely. No, hang on. Sneaky smile. About to break glass. No, keep it. Look away. Stop. Oh, okay.
What is he talking
Made
about?
it. I got it.
I'm not. I'd only seen those quotes printed in the newspaper this morning. I hadn't actually seen that clip.
I would also like to play poker with Seamus Coleman.
Yeah,
that would be
definitely.
great. I think you got 3 aces there, Seamus. No, I don't. The glisten in his eyes.
After watching that clip, I'm not convinced that's going to happen now.
Well, hang on. Okay. So Mick did explain the decision a bit more. Have a look.
Okay.
Well, he's a very intelligent player, that's for sure. He's got a wonderful left foot. If we can get him further up the pitch and get him so he can deliver crosses, then we should get a bit of joy out of that. We'll see whether he can, depending on who's up against him. If he's got a flying winger, can he deal with it? But he's going to get 90 minutes, and he might not get that many more between now and next month. So, and at least I'll have had a look at him and see that. Might be another string to his bow. And all the others, I know they can play there. And playing against Bulgaria is not going to convince me one bit more that Stephen Ward's any better or Greg Cunningham can do it. He was with us all in the summer. James McLean. That problem will come in October, that issue, and I'll deal with it then.
Yeah. Okay. That's how management works.
Is this the same manager that refused to re-experiment with Matt Doherty and Seamus Coleman in the same team?
Yes. On the basis of one bad half against Gibraltar when the whole team played crap and the weather was horrific.
Doesn't sound like the same philosophy.
No, it doesn't. McCarthy's not consistent. He's not a consistent manager. He does what he wants, and that's his prerogative as a manager, but then he explains it away with like, oh no, this is how I think about stuff, and actually that's not the case. As we saw with Shane Long not being in the squad. Like, he's not going to get another 90 minutes. Wouldn't 90 minutes for Shane Long, would that have been a good thing this week? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But we'll never know because he's not in the squad. These are 4 tickets that we have to give away for the Republic of Ireland against Bulgaria. It's 7:46 a.m. this morning, and if you've just joined us, then now is a good time to be joining us because you can share our stream wherever you're watching or listening to us, and you need to tell us who scored Ireland's goal in the 1-1 draw in Dublin against Bulgaria in the 2010 World Cup qualifiers. He also scored in the return leg in Sofia, another 1-1 draw in June 2009. Can we set those pictures again? So, just in case anybody's wondering, is that 8 is Keith Andrews, right? Yeah, before he grew his fabulous locks. 3, looking a bit bigger than he normally does, and certainly does now. It's almost like he's wearing a vest and then like big pants or something. But looking a bit chunky is our Kev. It's not him. He didn't score, did he? He did score that day, just not for us. He scored for Bulgaria in that. Was that a 1-1 draw as well? 2 1-1 draws against Bulgaria. They sound like classics. And that looks like a number 5. Am I giving anything away? Am I? Oh, sorry, Tommy. Who is it on the ground scoring? Did he score on both the legs? Did he? Right. The qualifiers, okay, not legs. Anyway, all you got to do is tell us his name and your name and share our stream. So basically tell everybody you're watching us this morning on OTB AM. Use the hashtag OTB AM, or maybe you're listening to us on Go Loud. You can tell us that. Go Loud's a great place to get us. Great place to get OTB Sports Radio, which is 24 hours of non-stop continuous sports radio in your earballs every morning, every evening, and whenever it is. Gavin McCarthy says, listening on Go Loud app, lads, and can't see the World Cup haircut. Any chance you'd tweet a photo? We will definitely tweet a photo of Eoin's hair. This is why he went to college, so that we could tweet pictures of his hair.
It's like that the classic David Squires cartoon where it shows this Sky Sports reporter who does his A-levels and goes to college, cute family photo at graduation, then the last panel is purple dildo in his ear. And this is me, except it's like my haircut being tweeted.
We have no purple dildos on hand at the moment. Here's what's coming up for you a little bit later on the show. Gareth Farrelly's going to talk to us about really horrific story coming out of his time at Aston Villa that ends up with Kevin MacDonald no longer being a member of the coaching staff at Aston Villa, no longer in charge of the youth setup. We're going to preview Dublin versus Kerry. The build-up has begun. Owen's going to be in Japan trying to find somewhere, some house of ill repute at 2 o'clock in the morning. If anybody has any recommendations for him where he can also watch the match, that would be good. A little bit later on, we're going to talk some US Open takeaways. Colm Boohig. Rafa Nadal is now just 1 behind Roger Federer in the battle to become the greatest tennis player of all time in the all-time honours list for Grand Slams. Sports news, and previewing Ireland against Bulgaria tonight at 9:15 this morning. It is 7:49 and 30 seconds. It's time for the newspapers. It's never going to stop, right? Roy doesn't get thunder my skin. Mix cam. That's the subheading on the Irish Sun this morning. And Mick McCarthy last night dismissed Roy Keane's latest outburst as thunder. But ahead of tonight's friendly against Bulgaria, he's hoping lightning can strike twice as he looks to see if Conor Horan can cut it as a left back. That's class. I'm just going to go around here, so turn to page 51. Right. My dad used to tell me that you've got to listen to thunder. You can't do anything about it, can you? Ex-players are talking all the time. We're talking about Michael Owen and Alan Shearer who are at it. It's not my fight unless they start talking about me. Unless they want to talk about me, then I really give them the credit by coming in and saying anything to you. Then I really can't give them the credit by coming in and saying anything to you? We got the video. We got the video of that too. Yeah, we do. So this is the bit where he was asked about the Cadbury's Off the Ball Roadshow in the Borgosh Theatre before 2,500 people, raising money for Aware.
Why would I have any comment on that? Did he comment about me? No.
No. But he commented about.
I don't think I should comment then. You know, you're not going to get me to comment on that.
Well,
I can't even believe you were naive enough to ask.
I kept him the very end. I mean, it was a talking point there last week, you know, and not within the squad, but certainly in
not with me.
You know, I know it wasn't mentioned at all, but I just mentioned it now in the safety of Monday. Didn't want to get the daggers off you Thursday night, but.
I don't know, I've given you them this morning, have I?
No, you haven't. No, you've been good for them.
I had a good night's sleep last night, this morning.
Do you approve generally of players going around and doing roadshows and making comments about former players? That's something you haven't done, but just a general observation.
I mean, people talking, you know, whether it's whoever it might be. My dad used to tell me, he said, you've got to listen to thunder. You can't do it about it, can you? So, ex-players are talking all the time. We're talking about Mike Eoin and Sheahan at it. So it's not my bag. It's, you know, unless they start talking about me, then. You know, even when they talk about me, I don't really give them the credit for coming and saying anything to you.
Yeah, so he did actually talk about Mick McCarthy, but it was just the same stuff that he's always said. Nothing particularly new.
Yeah, Coleman's face there again is interesting.
Yeah, it was like the bit where he's like, "Oh, we're definitely not talking about." Well, are you? Were the players not talking about that? I think the players were definitely talking about. I mean, I know for a fact the players were definitely talking about the roadshow. I know they all saw it, and you know, I mean, and then the bit like, "Oh, we were talking about." Throwing Coleman under the bus, we were talking about Michael Owen and Alan Shearer, because of course they were talking about it, because like it's all a lot of, ultimately, I mean, the Shearer Michael Owen stuff is just crack at this stage. I mean, what's going to happen? Well, Alan Shearer might kill him, but apart from that, what else could happen?
Back page of the Mirror this morning is Connor enters stage left. New role for Hourahan as Big Mick asks him to play in friendly defence, and it's too easy to qualify, says Gareth Southgate. England are playing Kosovo tonight, and they have not lost a Euro Championship or World Cup qualifier for 10 years, England. So you really have to keep them in your thoughts when you're thinking about the Euro qualification process. Also, front page of the Irish Daily Mirror, keep away from me. Soccer star Stokes is banned from seeing his ex for 4 years after a horrendous ordeal.
That's a horrific story involving Anthony Stokes. The Irish Independent, McCarthy to go left field as Hourahan tries new role. Aston Villa player gets new defensive berth with management keen on Bulgaria gamble. I mean, I could see this working if you had three centre-backs. Is that what's going to happen? Just like a chance to see what John Egan plays like for Ireland with the third centre-back?
Potentially, but at left wing back end, Stevens' chances are probably enhanced in that role.
Given that that's the role that he plays.
Although if Hourahan plays well, then you have him versus Stevens versus James McLean, who Stephen Kelly was saying last week, his best position is left wing back. So
where's Robbie Brady playing?
Robbie Brady could potentially, well, if Matt Doherty and his face continue to fail to fit, then Robbie Brady could be a contender at right wing back. So are you playing Coleman in that right wing berth, or are you playing him at the right wing? I probably would,
to be honest. I at this stage, no. At this stage, you're playing John Egan in a three with the existing two, and then Coleman's your right wing back because he's getting forward and using his pace.
Yeah, that's probably the way Mick McCarthy would see it. I wouldn't see anything wrong. Like, if everybody was fit, like, that's the issue. You kind of want your entire squad fit for the friendlies as well, because it would be a chance to do Egan, Duffy and Coleman on the right of the three, with Doherty as right wing back, and then whichever one of the three, even Hourahan as a left wing back. And that'd be a kind of exciting prospect, and it wouldn't be sort of something you'd have to roll back on if it goes too badly, because you can give it a full 90 minutes in a completely meaningless encounter.
Interesting headline in the back of the Irish Independent as well at the bottom there. I'm not sure you can see it, but Gavin set to resist Dub's reshuffle with O'Sullivan and injury concerns. So Jim Gavin is to resist the temptation to reshuffle and will keep changes to a minimum for Saturday's Ireland final replay, with Owen Murchant the likeliest to graduate from the bench into Dublin's starting lineup. Keane O'Sullivan, who suffered another problem with his hamstrings in the days before the drawn final, may only be in a position to provide defensive cover. So fit enough for the bench, but not fit enough to start, Keane O'Sullivan. Yeah,
that's a big boost to Kerry. We'll get into that after 8 o'clock. The Times goes with England's Ashes overhaul. New coach will be told to prioritise test team. Captain Root gets chance to lead revolution, and there's a picture of England players with Raheem Sterling in the middle there for England against Kosovo tonight. And the headline on the story beside it is Sancho told to take his opportunity. So Southgate has challenged Jadon Sancho to prove he can handle the pressure of international football. Like the pressure of international football for a team that haven't lost a competitive qualifying game for 10 years. Is that true pressure? I guess playing for England always brings its own level of pressure. And knighthood for boycott. A day after surrendering the Ashes, English cricket had something to celebrate yesterday when Geoffrey Boycott and Andrew Strauss were knighted for their services to sport in Theresa May's resignation honours list.
Wow, big news there. The Herald's Merchant is poised is the headline in the back of the Herald. So this is also Conor McKeown's story saying that they think Eoin Merchant's going to get in. We'll tell you how they will shuffle the defence to get Merchant in and what job he'll have in that defence. After 8.
Daily Telegraph leads with a photograph of Foden, Phil Foden there celebrating after England's under-21s beat Kosovo's under-21s 2-0. Remember me, Pep, is what the headline says. Surviving Eddie's tough regime. Danny Kerr's exclusive column talks about how the coach pushes boundaries. And Declan Rice says he received death threats. Midfielder was targeted by trolls.
So the Irish Times this morning, Harrahan set for a surprise left back row. We've covered that. And then Byrne is older, wiser and still backing himself. So this is Jack Byrne hoping for his chance against Bulgaria. It looks like he's going to get it. And Sweden versus the Republic of Ireland takes place tonight at 5:30 for Stephen Kennedy's under-21 team. It's a good side at the moment, and obviously Northern Ireland beaten by Germany 2-0 last night. The second goal coming in the 92nd minute, so they were in that. Jerry Thornley, only the funny word, but signs look positive for Ireland this time. Then there's pictures of some of the damage wreaked by the typhoon. What's the typhoon called? Faxia,
I think.
Faxai.
It's
yeah.
like I hadn't realised it until it actually hit it. It's actually grounded in Chiba, which is the city where Ireland are actually setting up to train. Famously, the city where Mick McCarthy and his team trained in the build-up to their final group game in 2002 as well. There's some fantastic images of it online. So
is Chiba far from Tokyo?
No, not far at all. About an hour, 40 minutes outside of the city.
Okay. Dublin pole position to complete drive for 5 is Kevin McStay's point today. He reckons that there might be some changes. He thinks that David Clifford will be marked again by somebody who got sent off. Marked David Clifford last week.
Via 2 yellow. I always think that getting sent off via 2 yellow cards is and 3 fouls, 2 ticks, 2 cards, a red card. I think that is just indicative of the most obvious way that a player has got defeated by his opposite man. Of course, if Clifford had put up a bigger scoreline, it would have been more comprehensive, and Kerry fans would have preferred that. But then again, like, this is one of the best defenders we've seen this decade in Johnny Cooper. He has had better days. He will have better days. So I guess that's good management as well, is trusting somebody like that.
Yeah.
You're not convinced. We'll come back to that in a moment, just to run through some of the other back pages. The Irish Daily Mail goes with old reliables. Seasoned pros will tackle Euro ties, says Mick. Micheál Clifford then picks his all-stars in waiting ahead of Saturday's replay. Kelly is a knockout for Lilies, and O'Driscoll doubts Ringrose will get starting spot. This is the growing opinion now. I would say if you did a straw poll of every person in this country, I think Aki and Henshaw would be Ireland's starting centre partnership with Ringrose on the bench. So that is the trend at the moment.
The Star says thunder words. Did you get that? Thunder words.
Thunderbirds. Boom.
Mick paying no attention to Keane's tirade at Walters. Mick McCarthy has dismissed as passing thunder Roy Keane's scathing criticism of John Walters. And that's that one there. And Pog would be a real addition. Paul Pogba has been told the door is still open for a dream move to Real Madrid. Maybe that happens in the summertime. Maybe it happens at Christmas. Does that happen mid-season? Do they spend that much money?
No, they don't.
I don't think so either. They spent 300 million quid already this summer.
Yeah, I don't think so. I know it's a very different position, but Paul Pogba was also in a battle with Neymar to get that big money move. Like, there's only so much money that is actually sloshing around in the coffers in Barcelona and in Madrid. And really, it's one of those two destinations for Neymar. If it goes to Real Madrid, I can't see Barcelona buying Paul Pogba. If Real Madrid put up the money and purchased Neymar, in the next transfer window, which granted is unlikely. He'd be more likely to go to Barcelona. Then the whole Pogba thing is kind of dead. It seems like Real Madrid are nothing unless he goes back to Juventus. But
it's possible. Juve obviously spending a lot of money.
The Irish Examiner this morning leads with golden moment. Brian O'Driscoll believes Ireland can win the World Cup. Eye of the storm. Declan Rice received death threats after switching allegiance to England. Say it ain't so, Joe. Rochford to replace Brolly on All-Ireland final TV panels. That's an interesting one. RTE have dumped Joe Brolly for the live coverage. Kieran Whelan and Pat Spillane will stay on the couch. And Stephen Rochford, the former Mayo boss, will join them.
Do you think this has anything to do with the apology that he issued to David Goff?
It's a good question, because everything he's said and everything he's done and all the people he's kind of gone out of his way to be a bit bad towards down through the years has never affected his role with RTE. And it's funny that the one time he does actually admit that he was wrong, RTE drop him, that there is something in the sort of stout, I'm always right, you're always wrong persona that he has.
Just to establish, I presume the pecking order is the live game is the be-all and end-all, because that's the one that the million people watch as opposed to the analysis post-match.
I would say so, especially on an All-Ireland final night. I didn't see all of the Sunday game. Did they do the full kind of 10-man panel?
I think there was there was a bunch of current players. So
the Gerard Brennan and stuff on it.
Yeah.
And they did do it on the other one. So maybe they're not doing that for the replay, and actually the role of the pundit is enhanced in the evening show. But certainly for the first game, you want to be on the live show during the day, because you can't get a word in edgeways on the nighttime show because there's 9 other guys vying for their opinion to be aired.
Yeah.
They probably will do the same thing for the replay though, because they'll have the team hotel and all that.
I think it's a ludicrous decision to take Brolly off your main thing. He is the box office on that panel. He's what everybody wants to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree.
If it is in connection with the David Goff stuff, that's also insane. He had a viewpoint, which is the whole point of having a pundit. You don't want somebody going, well, you know, I think something, but I'm not going to say it here for fear of it actually, it wasn't outrageous at all. It made some sense that maybe, and actually, you could make the case that certainly there was stuff in David Goff's head when it came to not sending a Kerry player off for a second yellow when he'd already sent a Dublin player off for a second yellow.
Not sure if I go along with that.
But you could make the case.
Of course.
Right? That's the case that was being made.
Well, I'd always fall on I fell on this side of things as well when the initial thing came up with David Goff, that you're entitled to an opinion, you're entitled to actually say something. Even if you believe that thing to be ridiculous, does not mean that thing is categorically wrong. Like, you disagreed with what Eamon Fitzmaurice said. I thought it was actually a fairly fair comment at the time. As time has gone by, I realise I was probably wrong on it all, but sometimes your opinions can change. PTSD right here. But I think that it should always just be an acceptance to a point of what somebody says, even if it is a fairly outrageous opinion, especially within the realms of sport. It's not like it's that a damaging opinion that will spread like wildfire, like fascism or something like that. It's somebody who believes that it should have been a free out rather than a penalty. I think it was such a wrong, he was so off the mark on it. But would I ask him if I was producer of RT? Probably not, to be honest with you. I disagree with him, but each to their own.
Here we go. So the Racing Post this morning, tailor-made logician ideal for Ledger test, says Gosden. So logician is tailor-made for the William Hill St. Ledger, according to John Gosden, and punters do not disagree as support Harden for the hot favourite to give Frankie Dettori a 15th Group 1 winner of the season on Saturday. And then they've gone with close encounter. Dublin Duel could be a cagey contest, Ireland versus Bulgaria tonight. It's on Sky Sports Mix. They're making that free to air. That's the free one, isn't it?
Yeah.
They reckon it's going to be 0-0.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised whatsoever. This is the sort of fixture that in 1 month's time we'll be looking back on saying, does anybody remember that game happening? Let alone 1 year's time. In a month's time we'll be like, I really cannot remember anything about that game. Although Conor Hourihan as a left back adds a different element to it. Alistair Cook is pictured on the back page of The Guardian. He's got a book out and he says, I went out on my own terms, you can't buy that. And Jacob Steinberg is leading with the Declan Rice quotes. Threats to me and my family. Southgate offers Rice support over abusive social media posts. So, we've got the Irish news here for you. O'Neill rues missed chances as Germany make North pay. So that's obviously last night's 2-0 home defeat for Northern Ireland against Germany. And then TG Carr to screen 2 county finals live. I'm not sure which two, but obviously, I'm not sure which two the Irish news are particularly interested in. But TG Carr obviously announced that they have loads of Sunday club football coming your way. I see the Fermanagh one is definitely one of them. I can't remember the other ones that were released yesterday. So we're kind of flirting with that time of the year now again, where it's people trudging through pitches, games, perhaps getting called off, brawls, and all that sort of stuff. So club season is nigh.
The good stuff. Brawls and trudging through pitches. And then the last headline we have for you this morning comes from the Daily Record in Scotland. Keep him away from me. Ex-girlfriend plea to court. Stokes banned from contacting mum of his child for 4 years after twisted stalking campaign which left her cowering in fear. So that's Anthony Stokes, who has been banned by the court from contacting the mother of his child for 4 years after a stalking campaign. That's the Daily Record, the front page, the front cover of it this morning for you. One more story from you, Eoin?
Yeah, Stephen Ireland's been speaking to the Athletic. Sam Lee, has been speaking to him, and he says it was an incredibly fascinating interview. I was 19 playing in the Premier League, but I want to focus in on his time with Ireland actually, because it's quite interesting. He says basically he should have handled things differently as a Republic of Ireland player. He says that when he was in the Ireland camp, the first couple of camps I got called up to, I was the happiest man on the planet. It was like I'd won the lottery. I loved it. It was such an amazing achievement. He says after that it became a bit of a circumstance thing. Steve Staunton said I could bring my kids and they would put them in a hotel room with a babysitter. But what kind of life is that for 2 kids? So I didn't do it, and I had to pick and choose my moments that I could play for Ireland, and when I couldn't, I just found the 10-day camps were just too much for me to give. I'm not sure is this something he's said before, where he spoke about actual legitimate family reasons rather than fictitious family reasons, which ended up coming through. He said, I remember I was playing live on TV for Manchester City. I was meant to fly out that night with Richard Dunn to meet up with Ireland, and I'd ring Stan after the game and say, I feel sick, I can't come. And he was like, I just saw you play live on TV. I couldn't sacrifice going to play for Ireland because literally for some reason it became a case of having to pick Ireland over my kids, and all day I'm going to pick my kids. It's interesting. I hadn't heard that before. Like it's interesting enough. Like, I mean, he's obviously had tough enough family circumstances as well within his own family. Like, the kind of to go through some of the rest of it. He says Ireland's partner Jessica had suffered a miscarriage, but the family wanted to keep the story out of the media. This allowed the grandmother lie to spiral out of control. So, like, there's often a lot of things going on beyond the surface here that we don't actually see with a player. And I guess when you read through the quotes, you can kind of sympathise with his, you can fully sympathise with the situation at times here. And the whole Steve Staunton thing and the hotel is kind of an unusual one. You don't really often hear people talk about that.
Which?
About the fact that
you spend time away from your family.
Well, no, not that you spend time away with your family, but if you want to actually marry the two, it can be a very, very difficult situation for people like that. Like, there's all these quotes as well. He says, on reflection, I probably should have gone back and faced the music for a couple of days, but I guess I kind of ran from it. I was doing so well at Manchester City, I didn't want to go back even more so. So that was kind of the club and country sort of dichotomy at that moment. I wish I had dealt with things differently, that the whole thing was dealt with differently actually on both sides, but I wouldn't say I regret not having played for Ireland since. So we do have these conversations every so often, or we used to have these conversations every so often about will he, won't he, when it came to Stephen Ireland potentially coming back to the Ireland camp. I think it's pretty clear that he never really considered that. He does regret that how it ended, but he says he's just such a family person, he just found it very hard, and that is the main reason. Like, it seems to me like a fairly reasonable excuse, and like if this had come out in the past, everybody would be like, fair enough, I think.
I'm not sure. I don't think that wanting to put your family before your country was something that people would have been ready to deal with, and they would have thought that you're a bit of an oddball, to be honest. Like, and even when the story did come out about the miscarriage, there was a lot of people within the media who just didn't believe the story, like that they thought there was an excuse about something. I always believed that story, to be honest. Because people deal with these things in completely different ways, and sometimes it's an overwhelming thing for anybody, for any family unit to be able to deal with. And so, like, he didn't really want to play international football. He wasn't willing to do the things you have to do, which means travel. That's the whole point of international travel, or international football. And that's also fair enough. It's a real pity. You do think that maybe and a decent international manager with experience would have been able to go and say, all right, look, I'll tell you what, we won't take you on this trip yet, and we won't take you on this trip, and we'll go and meet your family, and we'll see if there are other families that can come as well with us who you know and get to know over a period. There's loads of things you can do to try and make this thing work, as opposed to, I just saw you playing on the telly. You know, I mean.
Yeah, I'm the boss here. Literally, there is no sort of bending my rules.
No, like Steve Staunton was a disaster for Ireland in loads of different ways. Anyway, Mel, why is this week's replay of the Ireland football final getting so little coverage? It was everywhere leading up to the initial final the 2nd of September. Does the replay not warrant the same respect?
No press days, first of all, as far as I'm aware. Was there press days? I don't think so. They don't do them for replay, so that's one reason. I think this week now has kind of gone into a decent level, even from yesterday's paper you saw a good bit. I think tomorrow now it'll really crank up.
10 minutes past 8 this morning, you're watching or listening to OTB AM. We're back talking the All-Ireland football final replay with Anthony Moyles after this.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
The Sport Ireland campus Blanchardstown is the home of Irish sport, not just for our athletes but for you in the community. Check out our amazing offers for families with kids camps, sport academies and birthday parties. Or for adults, why not join our gym with a 50-metre pool? Or your club, school, friends can book one of our world-class indoor or outdoor facilities, including our athletics track, soccer, basketball or badminton courts and many more. Check us out on sportirelandcampus.ie.
Join Bruce Betting now for a risk-free first bet up to €100. That's right. New Irish accounts can enjoy a risk-free first bet up to €100. So if your first bet loses, we'll refund your stake with a free bet. Now that's giving you more. Bruce Betting. In store, online and now on your phone. T's and C's apply. Please gamble responsibly. See dunlewy.net.
OTB AM.
Yeah, you're very welcome back. So people complaining about the fact there hasn't been enough build-up to the Ireland football final replay just yet. Well, we're about to fix that. We're going to do it every day between now and Saturday, and there'll be loads to come on the radio show on Off the Ball this evening as well, and across the rest of the week. Anthony Moyles is with us. Anthony, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger. How you doing?
Yeah, there's a bit of a consensus growing that Johnny Cooper will actually be detailed to Mark Clifford again. There's a couple of different people in the papers today suggesting that that is the case and should be the case. Do you think it should be the case?
I don't think so. No, I wouldn't do it myself personally. I just think it's in his head now, Ger. I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks ago after the first game, where I think it wasn't necessarily a physical matchup that was worrying, or even some things that Clifford did in the first few minutes of the game, because Clifford was a little bit off. He was snatching at things in those first 5 or 10 minutes. And although he was winning ball on Cooper, it wasn't like that you'd say, okay, I'm under major pressure here as a full back or a corner back. I think it was actually just his anxiousness, his apprehension of the task ahead of him, that kind of got into his head. And you could see that obviously in the penalty, where he was just like kind of, grasping, looking for him. Where was he? That he knew he needed to get contact on him. So I think it was probably just as I say, the fear of the task maybe got into him a little bit, and he knew that Clifford was a main guy and that he had to stand up to this and da. So I wouldn't necessarily be. I would actually remove that from him now, and I'd say, listen, it's not about you. It's not about the last day. It's about you now stamping your authority on the game. We want to get you in a position where you can cause them damage, etc., and build them up that way. But I think he's definitely needed in that backline. Like I just think that the level of support in the substitutes bench that they have is just not there. So he's massively needed, but I don't think he's needed on Clipper.
Yeah, that's the thing, Anthony, isn't it? That you talk about the potential changes that Jim Gavin should make, and you can make a list of players that could be dropped, but it's actually harder than previous years to make a list of players who should start in their stead.
Yeah, like it's funny. Oh, when you really scratch the surface, they brought Darren Daly came back in last time. I don't think he's been around for a while on the 25 or 26, and he came back into the panel. So and then Keane O'Sullivan didn't look 100% to me. He came out. He came out actually after the photograph the last day. So I don't know if this is a thing. I've never noticed. I know McCaffrey, which we all know, likes to get into the dressing room first, and certain lads usually sometimes like to do things. They like to leave the dressing room last, or they like to be the first out, or whatever it is, or the second to first out. But he was actually, he came out way after everyone else. Like the photo was over, everything was done, and he appeared out. And I was kind of observing him during the warm-up, and I was thinking to myself, I said, he's not moving 100%. But I was thinking, like, why would you waste the substitute's role then on a guy who's half-cocked? Now, Gavin does hold him in massively high esteem. And we know he's played in matches before where he probably hasn't been 100% right, but his intelligence and the way he plays the game allows him to be in positions that, you know, as an outside man, as an opposition player, be it you're a half-back or a midfielder, you look up to give that ball. Now, this is something that we don't see as supporters, but the man on the ball sees it, because he just sees Keane O'Sullivan in his eye line. He's blocking off that kick and he says, okay, I can't go there, and he has to go somewhere else. So he does an awful lot of unseen work, which a sweeper's meant to do. But really, outside of him, you know, you're kind of saying to yourself that they have to switch a few things around. Merchant is obviously the obvious one that would come in. But, like, I mean, I think Kerry would be quietly confident that if Merchant started, that they could do a plan and try to get him isolated in that full back line on one-on-one with a few fellas, which would obviously play to Kerry's advantage due to his height disadvantage.
Just on Keane O'Sullivan, like you mentioned the unseen work there, and I totally agree that if Johnny Cooper is playing the last day with a sweeper and he goes in to try and get that ball against David Clifford, which results in the second yellow card, if he knows that he has a sweeper somewhere in and around that situation, he doesn't pull the arm. And that is the sort of unseen work of Keane O'Sullivan. It is the unseen work of a sweeper, and you do wonder that even if Keane O'Sullivan isn't fully fit, that Jim Gavin actually just instructively says to any defender or a replacement for Keane O'Sullivan as a sweeper, just hovering around that full back line, don't let Clifford or Gainey or anyone like that get into one-on-one situations.
Yeah, it is something that you need to do, Owen, and you're right in saying that. But the problem is when you're having your own issues with your own man, you know, like, I mean, I'm not, but players end up, you know, when you're trying to put out fires, they say, you know what, I'm going to put my fire out first. And although everyone is playing as a team and trying to help each other out, as you see that ball go in and say, you know, say there's James McCarthy's saying, if I drop off O'Shea here and Clifford catches this ball, and I go in to help Cooper and he slips it back out to O'Shea buries it, you know, everyone be saying to me, why wasn't I sticking to my man? So there is a little bit, I think Gavin is the type of a manager that says, we're not going to kind of bow to Kerry's prowess. They have strength, but we also have strength. So we're going to go one-on-one. We're going to stand up to these guys and we're going to show them what we can do. I think maybe for the next day he'll have to tip his cap to them and say, no, this is as much forward power as we've seen all year. We've really seen it up front. And yes, instead of, you know, it's a bit of a collective, you know, so the half-backs drop back in, the midfielders drop back in for the half-backs, the half-forwards come back and drop back in. So you just tighten things up a little bit. But there's no doubt about it, you can't leave a full back line high and dry as much as they did, certainly for Cooper the last day. But also, Kerry did it very well, Owen. You know, Kerry, it's not just that it was coming from a lot of open play. They did it on a certain number of moves. They did it on a kind of a free out near the Hogan stand for the penalty. So they did it on occasions where other guys could sprint out looking for the ball and you could isolate a man inside. Now, as a defender, what do you do? Do you just let him go out and get the ball? Well, now you've got two guys coming at you, or do you get right up behind that man and potentially expose him behind? So it's a really well-timed thing to do. They're not doing it really from general play where a guy could just sit back and drop off a fella. They're doing it more from structured plays.
A couple of things strike me about this. How much of the conversation gets framed by what Dublin saw when they were down to 14 men? Because they were winning that game comfortably when it was 15-on-15. Now, granted, that was only for 30 minutes, and who knows what the hell was going to happen after that, and blah, blah, blah. But, like, are you tempted to go, lads, everybody calm down. We were winning this game with 15. No one go crazy here. No one gets sent off this time. We're going to trust you one-on-one. And if Clifford skins you once or twice, so long as he doesn't get a goal, that's okay. We can take Clifford kicking 4 points. We're still going to score 20. They're going to score 15, and we're going to win this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth in that, Ger. But funnily at the game, I never felt, even when Kerry were 5 behind, I never felt they were really out of it. To be honest with you, you know, I thought they were, because of the gaps in the defence and the amount of space they were creating. I thought there were just one good ball in over the top, or one decent turn by a Clifford, or a slip by a Dublin defender. They were only one little mistake away from opening a goal and creating a goal. So I think Gavin also knows that, you know, and I think he's also very much aware of the fact that they have that in the locker. Like I said that to you about the Tyrone game, that they were creating chances in the first half against Tyrone and scoring chances that no other bunch of forwards would have done. Like, they stayed in that game by just their unbelievable ability to create scores out of nothing. And they have that. I think, you talk about Cooper, I think McCarthy was under serious pressure with O'Shea. I think he really didn't know how to handle him. He tried to be very physical with him and he got it right back at him. I think he was a bit afraid of his speed and his power. And then, you look across the line. I think Kerry will change it. I don't think Gavin White will start the next day. I think Spillane will come in, and I think what they may do is deploy O'Brien on McCaffrey. They may start him in the half-forward line, but they may just deploy him on McCaffrey and do a very similar role to what Durkin did for Mayo McCaffrey, and get him to try and turn and run towards his own goal. Now, that's a big task, but I couldn't believe that Kerry kind of left it as a kind of a collective on McCaffrey. No one really seemed to be taking him, and the collective failed because, he ended up scoring whatever it was, 1-2 or 1-3. So I think they have to go man on him, and I wouldn't be surprised then if they put the other Spillane into the half-forward line and or Jack Barry, and they have a bit more of a kick-out presence in that half-forward line. But they're the kind of moves I think they will potentially look to do, which will try to negate, because John Small is a very good defender. He's a very forceful kind of defender, very in-your-face defender. But I think with the ball in hand, he's not really going to hurt you. We saw him taking a very rash shot, kicking it up in the air. I'd be saying to us, Kerry, you know what, if anyone's coming out with the ball, you can give him the ball. I wouldn't be too overly out, but we definitely need to make sure that McCaffrey doesn't get the ball coming out. Yeah.
And look, it's obviously easy for us to say that here, and suddenly McCaffrey gets a yard of space and away he goes. But there's a template there from what Mayo did to McCaffrey. Now, there was a couple of times where it was a bad pass to him, or he made a handling error inside the 21, that actually, if that doesn't happen, then I think people revisit exactly how well Mayo did in the semi-final against them. But that's for another day. One last thing I did want to ask was, what happens if Merchant starts? How do Kerry engineer that? And what happens if Tommy Walsh starts? Is that in some ways, do Dublin not show their hand with putting Merchant on until they see if Jack Barry and Tommy Walsh and one of the Spillanes is in the half-forward line or full-forward line, then suddenly it's like, well, I'm not sure that Merchant's going to work today?
I don't think I don't think Merchant will probably, Davy Byrne had a solid enough game, so he wouldn't come in there. I thought Fitzsimons had a very good game, and I think Fitzsimons is the man for Clifford, by the way. So could Cooper come out and you may end up having a change in midfield though, Jerry. You may end up having McCarthy being pushed into midfield, or Gavin preempts the fact that Kerry will put a big man on the half-forward line, and maybe McCarthy just goes back out to the half-back line. So you end up with McCarthy, Cooper and McCaffrey in your half-back line. You have Davy Byrne, Fitzsimons, and then potentially, say, John Small or Merchant to come in. I don't think Merchant will start, because how you engineer the height differential thing is that, you get him just onto a guy. There's a bit of a switch, and then that guy goes in and just basically stands in full back. And what you try to do is or stands in full forward, so they say, and then you try as quickly as possible to get the ball into him, and cause a bit of confusion where Merchant is trying to maybe pass him on to someone else, and there's just that slight moment. Now, it may only happen for 10 or 15 seconds, where Merchant finds himself on a guy who's 5 or 6 inches taller than him, with a bit of space around him, and he's exposed. And all he needs is one of those. And the Kerry guys, bar O'Brien, the Kerry guys are pretty, they're all probably close enough to 6 foot.
Yeah. So you're saying no changes for Dublin, Anthony?
I can't see it. No, the only change, I think McCauley might be under a slight bit of pressure in midfield. Owen, he might be under a small bit of pressure. I don't think he had his best day. I think he was ponderous on the ball. And I think Kerry did really well, where they tackled them from behind a number of occasions and they caught up with them. And I know Fenton was injured. Well, people are saying he was injured. So, will he be back to 100% ready? If it was a back injury, you would hope he is. They won't be as bad there, because McCauley isn't your leader in midfield. He needs Fenton beside him. He's more of your worker. He's more of your groundhog. He's in there kind of, making things happen, but only on the back of Fenton making the big things happen. So McCarthy could find himself in there, and then you could get a situation where they have to draft someone in. But they're so thin on the ground into the defence. I think they're probably just going to go with the exact same men, but just rejig the positional switches.
Yeah. All right, Anthony, we'll let you go. Thanks a million for joining us this morning.
No bother, George. Cheers.
Anthony Moyles giving us some thoughts on the weekend's game. What do you think is going to happen? I think Scully, if I was changing the team, I'd take Scully out. I would definitely leave Michael Darmacawley in the team, given I think that he is the perfect foil for Fenton. If Fenton's not fit, do you still have to put him out there? You probably do.
Who are you starting instead of Scully, though?
Merchant. And
how does that shuffle positionally?
Well, I'm trying to get...
You're playing Cooper on the half-back line then?
Yeah, I am.
Are you pushing Jack McCaffrey then maybe into a more forward position? If you're preempting the Stephen O'Brien move...
Well, it depends. I don't think Stephen O'Brien's going to man mark. I don't think Stephen O'Brien's going to man mark Jack McCaffrey. Is he? Does that not ruin his opportunity? Does that not ruin any chance he has of being involved in the game?
Well, he wasn't exactly that involved in the game last time. I think Stephen O'Brien should go on Jack McCaffrey if Dublin end up playing Keane O'Sullivan, because I think that will leave that space in between the midfield and the full back line a little bit more open. And I think that was one of the main reasons why O'Brien failed to get into the first game.
Why?
Because they didn't play a sweeper. They had a full complement of halfbacks, and that space was just clogged up for Stephen O'Brien. Stephen O'Brien thrives in that place where a break develops in midfield and then there's acres of space, just like how Jack McCaffrey scored his goal. I'm
coming around to initially I was get a sweeper in. No matter what you do, get a sweeper in and keep that full back line. I'm from a Dublin perspective.
Yeah.
I'm not sure anymore. I think that I get the whole... If Kerry had their wits about them in the first 15 minutes, they'd have been 2-4 to 2 points up. Instead, there was wild shooting, a missed penalty, and they just weren't calm. But there was goal chances there for them. Mm-hmm. Throughout the match, there were goal chances there for them. But I think that's because the matchups were wrong. And I think that it depends on what Kerry do, right? So if Kerry decide to play Tommy Walsh, then I think you have to make changes immediately and you have to respond. And I think that, if Kerry play Tommy Walsh, I'm putting Philly on him, probably. And I'm putting Johnny Cooper... Probably I'm putting Johnny Cooper on Gainey and I'm leaving Fitzsimons on Clifford. Now that's a big if because I don't think Tommy Walsh is going to start.
I don't think so either. I think that the case he made in the first game was one of the substitute as well, and I think he's a fantastic option off the bench. There is an element of poker about this. You do want to wait for the opposition to blink first a little bit, and that's not how poker works. Everybody has their turn. Bit of an old Wild West shootout, really. Who's going to draw first to all of this? And I think that they'll both play it safe. I think Anthony could be right in terms of the fact that Dublin are going to make no changes, actually. But if I was Jim Gavin, if Keane O'Sullivan is 80% fit, I start him.
But Brian Howard can be your sweeper without making any changes. You can actually have that. And he was playing very deep anyway.
Could Scully be that guy?
Maybe. And look... I mean, Scully made a run to the back post that if somebody picked him out, he would have had a goal in the first 15 minutes, and everybody's like, oh, Scully played really well, didn't he? So, a bit of this is definitely, without seeing the stats that the teams actually have, for us, it's a little bit of scoreboardism. Right, let's move on, because on OTB AM this morning, we're turning to the allegations of bullying made against the former Ireland assistant manager. Remember that? Kevin MacDonald, during his time at Aston Villa. MacDonald was heavily involved in the youth setup at Villa Park over 2 decades, and it was while looking after the youth system at Villa that MacDonald was accused of bullying by multiple players. Amongst one of them was the former Irish and Aston Villa midfielder Gareth Farrelly, who I'm delighted to say joins us now. It was Gareth's interview with David Conn in The Guardian in December in 2018 about his experiences under MacDonald that led to Aston Villa opening an independent investigation into his conduct at the club and to MacDonald leaving his role 2 weeks ago. For you, there must be some sense of closure, I hope, in the last week, 10 days, where you finally begin to percolate through all the information of everything that's happened to you.
Yeah, to be honest with you, it still seems slightly strange. I think the fact that it's been ongoing for such a long time, and obviously considering the magnitude and significance of it, I'm still kind of processing it. Truth be told, I haven't really given it much thought. It's a positive outcome, and a positive outcome for everybody that kind of contributed to the investigation. But it's a period in time that it's hard to kind of make sense of, really.
Can you bring us back to the very first time that you remember meeting Kevin MacDonald?
God, to be honest with you, you think back over time and different things like that. I think the point and the sort of context for me in the whole thing was, I know you had David Conn on after he ran the 3 stories, and David's exceptional and was incredible in kind of this process. But I think what brought me back to it, if you like, even with regards to thinking about my time there, was as much the article and the story he had ran about the young player who had been there and had made a complaint against the club and gone through that process, found it incredibly challenging at every hurdle, and then went to the Premier League and conducted an independent investigation and had found bullying to have gone on at the club. But yes, the consequence, if you like, of that finding was fundamentally that Kevin MacDonald was elevated to a different position within the club. So my circumstance situation was more geared towards looking at what they had gone through and the fact that there was kind of no real closure or positive outcome for them, and that's kind of what got this moving again. I haven't really given it a lot of thought. There's been a lot of people have spoken about different aspects of it, bullying, old school, what it was like, people, styles, all that type of stuff, and that I don't really have a lot of time for that, because all of these instances that are going on at the moment, you read about bullying, historical sexual abuse, a lot of the particular elements are case specific to people, and the facts are kind of specific. So whilst I would never look to be dismissive of anybody's opinions, I think unless you've kind of lived this to a degree or been very, very close to it, it's difficult to be able to talk in great detail about the particular elements involved in this case. Okay, well, I mean, that's a very specific point that you bring up, and you're dead right to bring that up. Everybody has their own experience of actually living what this was like. But for you, it's really interesting that there was a spur to action when a young player at Villa brought a case. The Premier League found that bullying had happened, but Villa's response at that point and football's response was, okay, well, that's in the past now. You can still continue to work in the game, and the consequences are not really that severe. That was the thing that inspired you to say, hang on a second now, I am going to revisit the trauma of my own case, and I am going to make public the trauma of my own case to make sure that we start having a conversation properly about these issues and say that's not acceptable. Yeah, very much so. But I think there's a lot of things have to align for that story to become newsworthy or for people to shine a particular light on it. Like I say, when David and I sat down first, it was with a view to him speaking to other people. I was kind of reluctant to step forward because my life's moved on. As I say, I have a completely different profession and a completely different life now. But what I found difficult was that when those people started to relive it themselves, it's still tender and it was still difficult for people, and I didn't kind of have those same emotions around it. It's emotional to the degree that you're talking about yourself directly, but with regards to what happened and how it was, I was fortunate because I still had what people would be a successful career. How did you actually then manage that? Because I think that's one of the very important aspects of all this, is that you feel comfortable revisiting a very dark period of your life and comfortable talking about it in a way that's very matter of fact. I guess that's a testament to your own mental strength and your own ability to get through what you went through. Yeah, but there's two sides to that, isn't it? The Gareth Farrelly sat in front of you now having a conversation is very difficult and very different to the Gareth Farrelly who was a young professional footballer trying to make his way and break into a first team and have a career. That's part of life. There's probably a level of acceptance and maturity around that now. I think what became more apparent to me is that even within the context of the first story, I knew how difficult it would be, because when the first story was published, if you like, you'll always have a degree of people turning around and going, oh, well, here's an ex-footballer talking about a bygone time 20 years ago because he's not happy with how his career panned out. And I understand how people would view these things. What was really interesting about this whole process was the fact that, and there was a lot of thought and a lot of detail that gone into it, is that there was a second story which came out soon afterwards, which was basically other people relaying their experience there. And then you had a third article which basically dealt with the investigation that had gone on and which was more recent, if you like, compared to historical. So there was a lot of thought to it. It was difficult, but there was a huge amount of support for it. And obviously I was aware of a lot of people who had had a similar experience and then took the opportunity to speak to the barrister who conducted the independent investigation. And it's to the club's credit and Christian Porslow's credit that that's the position they took. Now, as I say, it took a period of time, but we had an outcome, and people would deem it to be a positive outcome or a vindication to some degree over the last few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. So just to bring everybody else up to date who might not know some of the details that we're talking about, your new career, you're actually a solicitor, a fully qualified solicitor now, I think working in Liverpool, if I'm not correct. And just to fill in the details of the case, as soon as your story came out, I understand David Conn contacted Villa and contacted the Premier League, and their response was to set up an independent inquiry. And I think probably Christian...
It was the club, just to qualify it was the club that took that position.
It was the club?
The Premier League. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So they probably do deserve a fair bit of credit because, you know, when stuff like this happens, a lot of institutional response will be, well, look, it's a long time ago. What's it got to do with it? But actually, it wasn't. It was one of their current employees who they immediately changed his role to be non-player facing while the investigation was ongoing. And as soon as the investigation findings were made, now we haven't seen them obviously, they sacked Kevin MacDonald straight away. I guess that's the one aspect of all this that's a little bit, it's not really the public's. I don't know. I'm in two minds, and I'd be interested in your take. Is it in the public interest for these findings to be published? The fact that he was summarily dismissed straight away.
Well, they haven't said that, Ger, and again, sorry to qualify that now, and I'm not trying to talk across you, but he hasn't been sacked, and
right.
That was not the wording. So again, this is the world we live in. It's fascinating now because we talk about the power of words every day, and we also talk about football and sport, and that insatiable appetite for news is that all of these stories kind of have a limited shelf life, if you like, in the press. And the point being that the conditions that they'd set out at the start within the terms of reference were that the barrister was going to conduct the investigation, and then the findings would be presented to the Aston Villa board. Within the press release issued from the club, it was that Kevin MacDonald had left the club. There was nothing said about sackings or dismissals or different things because the club would have had its own process to go through with regards to its employment law. The next part of that was that they would be making the findings or presenting the findings to the Premier League and the FA to do with it what they would. And that's kind of the position with regards to that.
Okay, so did they interview you as part of this process?
Yeah, one of the positive things about the investigation, and I did speak to the barrister, was that they wanted people to engage with it, but there was different steps taken along the journey to give and publish and try and publish the fact that the investigation was ongoing, with the hope that this would give people who may not have been aware of it enough to come forward and speak to the barrister. Now again, I go back to this, everybody talks about it. I'm aware of a number of people who came forward and spoke to the barrister, and I'm hugely respectful, and I've got massive respect for them for doing that, because it's not an easy thing to do, especially given the lapse of time. I think the reason I mentioned the media and a spotlight around football and that people don't really want to hear about bad news is the fact that those people may have had a different footballing outcome if they'd gone into a club that didn't have people like that there.
Yeah, like that's the main part about this, is that so many careers weren't fulfilled in the way that they could have been because of a culture that was allowed to exist.
Yeah. Now, there's two parts to that, Jay. Sorry, and it's a really good point you make, is the point that it's hard enough to make a career anyway. And people will hit you with the statistics about how difficult it can be to become a professional footballer. Playing a few games in the first team is not a career. Then all of the additional elements that go with that. But then you have the next part, which you've hit on correctly, which talks about the culture, and that whether you're trying to navigate as a young person, whether you're going to have that career or not, one of the things you shouldn't really have to be considering is the quality of the people, or whether they're equipped to actually aid the development. And that comes on to the other conversation then that people have about, it was old school, you had to break people down to build them back up again, and this was just part of the game. On the facts of this particular investigation, that was never the case.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Which part?
What it was actually like.
No, difficult. Like you say, for me, Irish kid away, you want to become a footballer, your sole focus every day is on trying to get better and try and break into the first team and try and fulfill all of the ambition you have. And then you encounter, like Aston Villa, to trying to create the picture for you slightly differently, is that in moving away, I signed for Aston Villa purely on the premise that the youth development officer at that time, Dave Richardson, who I still speak to now, that was the reason I signed for Aston Villa. You buy into people. He was incredible. My family trusted him, and he was the reason I went to Aston Villa. The difficulty I had, which happens in a lot of football clubs, is that you get a change of personnel quite quickly. He was headhunted at that time to go in and set up and run the youth structure within the Premier League. So youth team coach at that time leaves, next coach leaves, manager gets sacked, new manager comes in, and he brings his people with him. Unfortunately for those players at that time, the people that came in then were Kevin MacDonald and somebody else. And like there was another person involved who wasn't involved in the investigation, but I would say was equally as destructive as Kevin MacDonald ever was. But because he had left the club, he wasn't a part of the investigation.
What age were you when Dave Richardson left?
17.
Right.
He left. I signed for Aston Villa, and he'd left within 3 to 4 months of me being there.
And sorry, you're a Dub, are you?
I am.
Whereabouts?
North side, from the Navan Road.
All right, okay.
Ashton.
So,
yeah.
and Home Farm was your club?
Yeah. Home Farm, and I had an incredible time at Home Farm then because of the people that were there. I think my case specifics are different because, again, I was a home board. It was a big decision for me to leave. My family, there was huge consideration given to education, the right environment for me to try and develop because I was so focused on home. It was a huge step for me. And Dave Richardson at that time was the person that was able to kind of pacify and assuage my family to say that this is an environment where it's going to be the best environment for him to develop and thrive. And
at that stage, Villa are constantly competing at the top of the old First Division and the start of the Premier League. You know, it's like a very glamorous. They have a decent enough track record at that stage of bringing young players through. So you're going over dreams in your back pocket thinking, you know, it's a strong Irish crew at the club, even at that stage. I have a chance of making it here.
Yeah, the strong Irish crew was massive at that time. I think, again, for me, you say dreams in your back pocket. It's no different to the dreams everybody has. I think my first trip over when I was introduced and when I was being brought over to see whether I would sign at the club or not was I was brought to meet Paul McGrath. He was like my hero and became a friend. The Irish contingent there were a help. But again, they're getting on with their own careers. I think there's that you buy into these terrific networks and it's all solidarity and everybody's going in the same direction. And it's quite an individualistic element to the sport as well where people seek to look after themselves first, which is only natural.
I think the other thing possibly that happens in this instance is that no one really understands exactly what the impact a situation is having on the individual, apart from the individual. And at 17, maybe you're not prepared or equipped or emotionally intelligent enough at that point to realise that A, this is wrong, and B, you need to deal with it. And then beyond that, how the hell do you deal with it?
The emotional intelligence point is a really, really interesting one you make. You do know it's wrong, but you have a difficulty because where do you go with it? And I think that's one of the challenges at that time because and that is still an enduring challenge for a lot of people even to this day. How do I deal with this? It's not something that I thought I was going to have to give any consideration to. It created an additional problem for me with regards to going home and family and support structures because all they see is what they see on the TV on a Saturday. So they're looking and going, well, how come you're not in the first team yet? Or how come you're not progressing as quickly as some others? And you're trying to say to them, well, I've got a difficult relationship with the coach and I don't feel I'm getting X, Y, and Z. But for them, there was always not like an institutional element where they would always go, well, no, hang on a second here. He's the coach. It must be you. So what are you not doing? So again, it creates different challenges that way. Like we're talking about it, and it's by no means an easy subject. It's incredibly complex, and there's so many elements linked to that. And that goes back to the point I said about it's so difficult to succeed, even by succeeding what that definition is in its own right, because succeeding becomes enduring, surviving, being able to continue. I'm extremely fortunate. Like I'm lucky, whereas I know people that weren't able to deal with it or found it even harder and then weren't able to move on from it. And there aren't really any winners here per se. There's a conclusion, and it's a positive conclusion, that he's not there, but those people will never get that time back again.
Gareth, maybe people are wondering like what it was like day to day. We've kind of put the architecture of the story in place for them, but when you're 17, 18, 19 and you're in work every day, what is the culture, the toxic culture of bullying actually like for you to live through? How does it manifest itself?
The manifestation is just little things, aggression, people always having snidey comments. Like I kind of set out my own particular experiences in the articles I did with David about things that would have been said at different times. Things weren't good enough, it was never going to be good enough. Reports that were going back to the manager were always focused on what you weren't doing, not the positives that may have happened. In my own instance, like one of the greatest kind of honours you ever had was playing for Ireland, and that would have been undermined, people talking badly about it. So it was just, in my case, it was consistent. It was consistent and it would have been there every day. So as opposed to focusing your energy on trying to get better and fulfilling your potential and your talent, you were going in on a daily basis thinking, right, well, hang on, what am I going to have to deal with today?
And in that article with David Conn, you talked about just being wired, constantly at peak physical fitness and yet constantly tired, finding yourself on the stairs at 3 o'clock in the morning, your hands on your knees, just staring into space.
Yeah, and that's a true recollection of how it was then. But it comes back to the point you made again around that emotional intelligence, is that when you're a young guy, you're not equipped and you don't have that emotional intelligence, and you're going through a process of maturing. You're dealing with all the challenges of ego around being within that environment anyway, and competing against other people who all want that same thing you do, and not really understanding that. And that was as much that point, is that you're going through these emotions where you've got voices in your head, and that voice is constant and it's relentless, but you don't really understand it. And then you're countering that by going into training and thinking, well, hang on, I am in supposedly peak physical fitness. I'm doing all of the things I'm supposed to do, but I'm constantly exhausted, and this doesn't make any sense, and I don't understand it. So it's having to kind of process all of those things and go through it. So again, it's not easy, and that's a constant journey. And as I say, I only started to understand that and understand my mind and make peace with it after I became ill. So it took me a long time. That's one of the things I see quite a lot, how difficult it can be, because there's so many things going on that are actually irrelevant to the game itself.
Yeah, you mentioned falling ill there, and we haven't even touched on that part of the conversation. But to just finish up the time at Villa, did you feel like you were being isolated for any particular reason, or did you see that this was a pattern of behaviour? Not that either one is better than the other, but did you have an understanding that this was how multiple people were being treated, that there was certain favouritism being shown, or did you just feel like, okay, well, this is the culture and the environment that I need to endure?
No. I never thought about having to endure it, because I think what happens then is in your mind it's like a confrontation where you think the difficulty is, and where you're expending more of your energy is you're going in on that daily basis and you're thinking, well, right, I have to put my game face on here. I can't let these people see that they're getting to me, and that takes more of your energy. I think it's probably a combination of all of the points, but it's just how it was. It doesn't make it right. As I say, I don't really give it a lot of thought now. I'm extremely fortunate with how my life has moved on, but I think within the crazy world of football that we all love, sometimes you have to turn around and put your hand up and say, well, no, hang on, that wasn't right.
Do you think it's still going on at clubs today?
Yes, of course, it does at different levels, and I think there's a debate to be had now as we await the Sheldon report, when we look at the historical sexual abuse, when we look at different bullying things that are going on. But I think it has to be thought out carefully. I don't think it's easy. We've had the Chelsea report recently there's lots of interesting things going on. But again, I'm conscious that I wouldn't even say I come on to the scale with regards to the bravery that the guys that have come forward who suffered historical sexual abuse. I think they're incredible, and I think it sparked a different debate. But I think at some point we have to look to join all the dots up and look to make a meaningful change, because within this entertainment industry that's exploding and continuing to plough on, regardless, you have to give some thought to the people who are involved in it.
I think you're dead right about the joining the dots. Like, and I'm sure people who suffered bullying must feel like sometimes they can't tell a story when there's another story going on that is as horrific as the historic sexual abuse stories. But actually, if you think about the culture that allows one to exist, then similar cultures need to exist for secrecy to be a currency within a sport, the way it had to be for the sex abuse scandals to happen. So I think unless all of society starts talking about allowing people to be open about what's going on with their mental health and with personal relationships, then we're not really going to progress as a race, are we?
No, and that's not said like a mission statement. Again, it's not sitting back with this profound opinion that this is how it should be. But I do think it's important, because I think with how quickly football moves, there's a danger that you have a story that in its own right is compelling and fascinating and should be delved into more as a lesson, or to develop a better understanding of how that whole thing was allowed to develop and the impact and the effect it had on people. There's a natural sort of urge that, well, we're on to the next thing. Don't worry, the games are back on Saturday.
Yeah.
And it sort of moves along. It's like the show's no longer in town. And I think that's where the challenge lies now, because there's a lot of people doing excellent work, but sometimes it still gets lost and people don't know where to go with it or how best to highlight the points you've made about dealing with it properly. Otherwise, it's just all talk. And that's the danger sometimes, is that everybody will stand up and go, oh yeah, well, it's really, really bad, but listen, we've got to move on to the next thing then.
Yeah, well, and you are now part of a story that wasn't just all talk. You went public with something that wasn't very easy to go public with, and it has had a very positive outcome. And I think that you would hope that has an impact on other clubs around the Premier League who are going, well, you know what, actually, if Villa have had to do this, then we need to audit our own staff and make sure that this isn't how we're treating the young players today. Because ultimately, it's a stupid, self-defeating way for a football club to allow the treatment of its potential superstars in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is, people will speak about duty of care and people speak about obligations, but there is an obligation, because how that system has evolved, even since I was involved in it, is that there's kids in academies from 8 now. And in some ways there's a lacuna there, because the PFA don't tend to get involved until those players either sign on as scholars or become young professionals. So there's a gap between that period where people are heavily invested in the club, heavily invested in individuals. It's like a God complex, because they're aware of the power those individuals possess as to whether somebody's going to get an opportunity or not. And I'm not sure in all cases that the people in those roles are equipped to be there.
Gareth, if you were to meet Kevin MacDonald now, would you speak to him? Would you have something to say to him?
No, and I'm sure he'd probably see it be the same as me. I don't really need to see Kevin MacDonald. I made peace with it a long time ago, so I don't harbour any ill will towards him. So life moves on.
When he got the gig with Ireland, what did you think at that stage?
No, well, that was an issue for me, because the point being is that football is becoming more and more detached from reality. So invariably, if you find yourself in a situation where somebody who was quite open and willing to say that your caps, your football, your country was Mickey Mouse, and then all of a sudden he's quite happy to take up a role as the assistant manager for that country. Yeah, you end up trying to reconcile how football can be one of the only industries where something like that could happen.
Were you tempted at that point to go public or to say something, or?
Yeah, but the point I said, which is really, really valid, and like David Cahn's work is around investigative journalism and journalism and seeking to expose things that are going on. You're back to the timing element. He would have been in the Ascent at that time, new management team, part of it. people don't really want to hear the story. There has to be a number of things aligned for that to become newsworthy, and at that particular time it wouldn't have been. So it took time for it to happen, but that's invariably how the world works now.
Yeah, well, look, I'm really glad you did come forward with that story. I'm glad you've been great with your time this morning. I did want to ask you, you qualified as a solicitor. You're going to end up working with the Court of Arbitration for Sport a bit.
Yeah. I've been recently appointed as an arbitrator, which is a huge honour. And again, you talk about silly things, but having had the Cork City case, I was telling somebody over the weekend, having had the Cork City case, the 3-club rule in 2007, that went all the way to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. When you're a footballer, you've got certain role models. I was extremely fortunate. I got to play with some of my heroes. I had a terrific football career, but in that second career, there's even goals you strive for. And being an arbitrator at the Court of Arbitration for Sport after the Cork City case would have been one of them. So it's been terrific to be appointed. Now it's looking to get involved in some of the cases. So hopefully that will happen in the not too distant future.
Were you sitting there that day in the middle of it going, geez, I wouldn't mind doing this?
No, like the law, it fascinated me because all of these people were talking about me, but I didn't really understand the law or the regulations or how it worked. And that's kind of where part of my appetite to learn the law came from. So I always kind of went back to that, and going to Lausanne and the court itself and seeing the process and experiencing the case and how it all played out was definitely one of the factors in trying to retrain and do something new.
Is there a role for you in football at some point, do you think?
Yeah, definitely. Football never, when you've done something for the majority of your life, it never leaves you. But I think what I've tried to learn with being a lawyer is to learn to think differently. And I think that's what's fascinated me with that. I think learning something new has been incredible, but I think now I would be far more objective and systematic in considering that role. And it would have to be something that is stimulating, of interest and worthwhile.
I know you said you weren't somebody there sitting there with like a mission statement or a manifesto, but like you could definitely perform a function for the Premier League or for the FA or for the FAI at some point down the line as somebody who has had experience of what it can look like when it goes horrifically wrong at underage level in football, and then go into clubs and say, well, you know, maybe you want to check this and this.
Listen, there's some brilliant people doing that already. I think I'm fortunate. I have a role within the FA, which I love. I'm an independent football panel member. I have a role within the Premier League where I'm a match delegate, which involves assisting and assessing the referees. But like everything, I'm making my way. I'm learning all the time. So hopefully opportunity will continue to present itself, but I have to keep developing as well.
That's an excellent point to end this on. Gareth, you've been great with your time. Congratulations on the appointment as an arbitrator at the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and thanks very much for sharing your story with us this morning.
No, great to speak to you. Thanks for your support.
What I learned so much from that campaign.
Did you?
Yeah. I needed to be more focused on myself for that World Cup. I was always looking over my shoulder, rather than just thinking about myself, getting myself right, getting my own performance right. You know, I was half looking at him, saying how he was playing, and
sure, it was hard because there was like Rog cam every time you kicked.
Yeah, it was tough. It was, and again, what you learn from that. Myself and Dave got together after that World Cup, and I said it to him. I said there was a couple of kicks where I'm lining up and behind the posts, like Rog is there, and he said next time that happens in a game, I said I want you to have him as your target, and he just put the ball right between his eyes, and it was a great sort of visualization thing for me.
So a bit surreal though, that period with the rivalry, like it
was crazy. Yeah, like I hated. Part of me hated playing for Ireland because you feel like half the country are against you, and you're playing for Ireland. You're doing something that you dreamt of since you were a kid, and you think that when you play for Ireland, you know, you're going to have the full support of the country and all that. But that's wishful thinking, you know what I mean? And people weren't making it
pleasant.
You know, yeah. Well, no, there was a lot of criticism. There was a lot of
scrutiny.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And obviously, because Roger was such a great servant to Irish rugby and so many games before me, so it made it difficult.
Yeah, it's great stuff from Johnny Sexton yesterday. You can hear the whole thing on our podcasts, wherever you get them, offtheball.com/podcast is the best place. But I know most of you out there are using iTunes or different podcast players as well. So enjoy it wherever you can get it. And you can also get us on the Go Loud app, which is where OTB Sports Radio exists. It is bang on 9 o'clock this morning. We've got 4 tickets to give away for Ireland against Bulgaria tonight. It's 2 pairs. All you need to do is share the stream and tell us Who scored the goals when Ireland drew 1-1 with Bulgaria? This is the one in Dublin. Very busy stadium there, isn't it? Very busy in the background there. It's the terrace. That's obviously the old Lansdowne before it got fixed, before the new Aviva. God, it's a long time ago, isn't it? Yeah. It's not Kevin Kilban. He scored an own goal that day, and it's not.
It's not that's not the Hill, is it?
It could be the Hill. Yeah.
That's
Sorry, it is.
like
It's Croker. Jeez, I was wondering why I don't remember these games. It's 09. Is that right? Is that right?
It was 07, was it? No, it's 2010. 2010.
Yeah, I don't think Keith.
Yeah, 2010 qualifiers. It's 2009. I think Tommy's saying.
Yeah, it's.
Bernard Dunn was on the pitch before the game, having won his World Championship, obviously. So that
Do you
was
remember that?
2009, Paddy's Day. The Manx got beat. Ireland won the Triple Crown.
Grand Slam.
And we're world champion. Not in 2009. Oh, it was.
Grand Slam.
Yeah, good
Same
point.
day as Bernard Dunn.
Yeah.
Super Saturday, I think they called it.
Who was the captain for Bulgaria there?
Berbatov?
No. It was a stockier guy.
We take it back up?
So you actually could see the armband in the photograph.
Oh, yeah. Petrov.
Petrov, it is Sabine Petrov, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
Colm Boohig, good morning to you.
How are you? Well,
How are you?
not too bad on yourself.
We're talking tennis.
We are indeed.
Oh, US Open, which we were just saying beforehand, none of us really got a lot of because A, we are normal human beings who have to get up at an early hour to... And also, it was on Amazon, which if that was the only way you were going to get it here in Ireland was basically via that, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was unsociable Grand Slam tournament. It was either late night or very early morning you were watching it. A lot of highlight packages back, and as you say, Amazon Prime have it, but I love the US Open, like historically speaking too, because it always reminds me like back to school time.
Yeah.
Growing up and watching when it used to be on exclusively on Sky, I think. But this was a really good tournament. But again, right, there's two stars coming from this. It's Medvedev on the men's side and Andreescu on the women's side. But there's still the same big takeaways. The big three in the men's continue their domination and the Serena narrative continues in earnest.
Well, like on the Andreescu stuff, I know we've got 5 other things to look to, and she may be in there as well. Like 12 months ago, obviously we had the Naomi Osaka situation, and we thought that this was going to be the next superstar of tennis. She may well be. She hasn't had an amazing 2018, I think it's fair, or 2019, I think it's fair to say. Osaka. Yeah. Is this going to be the same situation? Obviously, once you reach that sort of height, you are going to plateau eventually because you can't gauge everybody by Serena's standard.
You've know, Andreescu is a phenomenon. She's 19. She, like, to put into context, she was born in June 2000. By that stage, Serena had already won a Grand Slam. By the time that Andreescu took up tennis at the age of 7, Serena had won 8 of her 23 Grand Slams to date. So she's only been playing the sport for 12 years. Coming into this year, 2019, she was a complete nobody. She was ranked 152 in the world. She failed to get out of the first qualifying round of last year's US Open, so she got nowhere near the main draw. But this year, she's just completely taken off. She went far in Auckland and the Mexican Open in the first 2 months of the year. But then she became pretty well known when she won Indian Wells, and she beat Angelique Kerber, who's a multiple-time Grand Slam champion. So she went from there, from Indian Wells, then to win in her local tournament in Canada. She actually beat Serena in that final, had to retire through injury. So she came into the US Open kind of an outsider. She was ranked 15th, I think, because she was getting late into tournaments at semi-final stage, not winning them, but then when she won the Indian Wells tournament and in Canada, that propelled her ranking completely. But she's totally fearless, like completely fearless. She dropped 2 sets on the way to the final, one in the 4th round, one in the quarter-final, and then in the final, she obliterated Serena. And you're going back to the Serena narrative that I mentioned at the top of this, that's 4 Grand Slam final defeats in a row. But for me, this is about Andreescu. She is a serious contender to actually stay at the top of the game for a long time to come. With Osaka, she'll be back too. It's looking good at the women's game. The men's game is the opposite way around.
So Serena reached every final this year?
No. Her last 4 Grand Slam final defeats has been the 2 from the US Open and Wimbledon this year and last year.
Okay.
So since she's been back from the pregnancy. So she's stuck on 23 Grand Slam titles. She has the second most Grand Slam titles ever. She's one behind Margaret Court. So she's desperately chasing that to equal it. But in the 4 Grand Slam finals since she's been back, she's been beaten in straight sets in all 4 of them. And it's definitely a complete mental thing because she reached the final of this year's US Open without breaking a sweat. She won her quarter-final against Wang from China, 6-love, 6-1 in 44 minutes. She beat Alina Svitolina in the semi-final really, really easily. And then she goes into the final to Andreescu. She was 5-2 down in the second. In fairness, she did have a bit of a comeback, but Andreescu kept her nerve and served it out. Everybody was completely partisan for Serena in Flushing Meadows. It didn't matter for Andreescu. She took her apart. And Serena, in her post-match press conference, said it's not good enough anymore. She was excusing herself for the first 3 final defeats in this run, but not anymore. So that's where she is. I don't know where she goes. She's 38 now and she's 1 away from that record, and I don't know what she's going to do with that, because the women's game, if you look at the last, say, 9 Grand Slam winners, it's all different.
Yeah, so then she's got a good chance to beat one of those
variety.
in the final.
You would think, but she can beat anyone when she wants to, but she's not doing it. But I don't really know. Well, I don't know where she goes from here, because
she's not retiring though yet. There's no sign.
She's not retiring. She's not going to retire. She gets that 24th. She gets that. She levels Marquardt, and then she'll probably want to get to 25th to be outright the best ever. And you think she will? I mean, she's still by far the best player. She's ranked number 8 in the world, but she can beat anyone she wants to. But the player that's beating her the most is herself at the moment in these finals. But Andreescu is a complete star, total star.
In the men's, you said it's 3 years since anybody other than the big 3 have won a Grand Slam.
Stan Wawrinka 2016 US Open was the last. Djokovic won 3 of the last 4 going into the US Open. He was nailed on to win this. He had won his first 3 rounds in straight sets. Then he got to the 4th round against Stan Wawrinka, lost the first 2 sets and retired at the start of the 3rd. The crowd booed him because he retired. But if Djokovic hadn't been injured, he's probably going to win another.
Was he definitely injured? It wasn't just Wawrinka's beating me and I don't want to. Was he? What was wrong with him?
No, because it was the very start of the 3rd set, so he could have easily come back. But he's a really bad shoulder problem, and he has had since Wimbledon. He's barely played since Wimbledon at all. He doesn't need to play anyway. But he was odds on to win that tournament. Like he was breezing opponents in the first 3 rounds. He would have easily won.
And how many Grand Slams does he have?
He has 16. So in the race for it to be the outright winner, you still have Federer on 20. You have Nadal now on 19. 12 of his 19 of the French Open, though. It was remarkable. And then Djokovic on 16. Djokovic is the youngest out of the 3, though, at 32. So you fancy him to continue on, actually surpass them. I think he will too.
If he does beat them, does he automatically become the best ever?
No, it's not. Like, this is completely subjective. It's who you think is the best out of the 3.
Is it not? Is it subjective, or can you not be objective and go
objective?
Who won the most Grand Slams?
Yeah, who won the most Grand Slams? But then Nadal is on course now to have won the most out of the 3, but 12 of those Grand Slams are the French Open.
Yeah, and they count.
You get a trophy,
you get the money, you get the title.
But
it's a real thing.
Federer spread it around.
I mean,
Djokovic has spread it around. I think if you take look, it's not Nadal's fault that he is the best of all time in clay by a distance.
Yeah,
but
why do you hate the French so much, Colm?
I don't hate the French. I'm just saying 12 of his Grand Slams have been the French. Do you know what I mean? Just 12 of them have been.
But is it not a case that actually Djokovic's Grand Slams are even more valuable again, because he comes into a situation where Nadal and Federer are dominating the game, and he is the absolute, by definition, number 3 in the world. There is no way he's going to break that glass ceiling until he does, until he actually manages to get his game to a level where he can actually compete with Nadal and Federer. Not only that, go ahead and win, 16 Grand Slams? Yeah. That's not bad. That is greatness. That is absolute greatness.
Look, Djokovic is going to win the most by the end of it. Look, it doesn't matter. The star of this tournament is Medvedev. He's been an absolute box office because he went from villain to hero in this tournament.
He gets beaten in a 5-set final.
5-set final. He was absolutely brilliant, right? In a 3rd round, he played Feliciano Lopez, who's a veteran Spaniard, and he was winding up the crowd like no tomorrow. He snatched a towel off a ball boy, so the crowd didn't like that. Then when the crowd started booing Medvedev, he flipped them the bird. Every time he won a point, a very good point, a good rally, he would wind up the crowd like that. And then afterwards, we're going to play the clip now, afterwards in the post-match on-court interview, this is how Medvedev addressed the booing crowd.
Well, first of all, what I can say that thank you all, guys, because your energy tonight give me the win. Because if you were not here, guys, I would probably lose the match because I was so tired. I was cramping yesterday. It was so tough for me to play. So I want all of you to know, when you sleep tonight, I won because of you.
You love that. I do. You love that so much. That's fantastic.
He looks like James Madison's half-brother.
I never thought about that. But look, he came full circle because he went from villain to hero in the final, because he was playing brilliant tennis. To put into perspective, he was 2 sets to love down against Nadal in the final. It was 4-all in the 3rd. he could have completely packed it in, but he kept it going and he took it all the way to a fifth. And actually, at the start of the fifth set, he had an early break point chance, so he could have had one of the most amazing turnarounds ever. It was his first Grand Slam final. He had never been beyond the fourth round of a Grand Slam up until that point. But the crowd started loving him because he's so incredibly talented. He's fifth in the world. It's not like he's a nobody. And then afterwards, his on-court interview was very funny as far as losing Grand Slam final speeches go, because he said they were playing a special video clip for Nadal afterwards about his 19 Grand Slam victories. They were showing it on the big screen, and Nadal broke down in tears.
Right.
Medvedev was saying, if I had won, what would they have shown? Because he's absolutely nothing to show for his career so far. So he was playing into it, and
that's like the Stephen Cluxton video before the Meath game.
Well, at least it was afterwards. At least this match, you know. But like Medvedev, he was very funny. He was saying even the end of the third set, he was thinking about what he's going to say in 20 minutes' time because he's about to lose, and that's when he let the shackles off. And that this guy is incredibly talented, and he is genuinely is one of the ones who could
make the leap.
Now he might just make the leap by the time that the three lads retire. Like Federer's 38, like he's going to turn 38.
They really need something because...
but they got something at the US Open because Medvedev is the real deal.
I mean, we've had a lot of people emerge in the US Open who don't actually then go on to be that good over the next...
We're only taken by what he's done. So he's only 23. That's the other thing. He's had an amazing summer in hardcourt. He got the 3 finals in a row before the US Open, and he won the Cincinnati Masters as well. He beat David Goffin and in the final, and Novak Djokovic in the semi-final. So the guy is serious talent, and he got to 2 other finals before that in Washington.
How did your boy Nick Kyrgios get on? Your favourite tennis player of all time?
Well, not at all, but he absolutely wasted it. He had an unbelievable chance. He had the easiest draw. He could have got all the way to the semi-finals until he played a contender. He threw it away in the third round. He lost in straight sets to Rublev from Russia.
With no temperament.
He went a bit mad. But actually, the umpire gave it back as good as he got it.
That's
the umpire.
He gets everything he deserved.
But he had it sewn up, and he won the Washington Open this summer. He had it sewn up. He could have easily got to the semi-final and he blew it.
Two last things. Did we do Osaka? We did do Osaka.
Well, mentioned her. Yeah, we briefly mentioned her. We didn't mention golf.
Osaka has endeared herself once more to the US Open crowd. She did it last year in the final when Serena had the famous meltdown, and Osaka was very kind afterwards in the interview. But in this year's tournament, and in the third round, she played Goff. Goff was in bits afterwards at the net, bawling, crying. The microphone picked it up. She said she couldn't handle it. Osaka took her over to do the post-match on-court interview with her, and Osaka was like, "This one, she's a star for the future. Cherish her."
Who's going to have the better career?
Osaka.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Goff she started too young. She's 15 years of age. She'll be gone by her mid-20s.
Right, that's
dressing room wall stuff.
To finish that from
the Floridian dressing room wall will have her the television in her training centre will have Colm Boohig saying, "You are going to peter out in your mid-20s."
After you won 12 Grand Slams. Right, we're going to be back with the very latest sports news, talking Ireland versus Bulgaria. 13 minutes past 9 this morning here on OTB AM. We'll be back with Phil Egan after these. Thanks, Colm.
All right.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts is back at the City West Convention Centre, Dublin, from the 6th to the 12th of October. See 32 of the biggest darting stars on the planet, including world number 1 Michael van Gerwen, former Grand Prix champion Darryl Gurney, plus fan favourite Peter Wright. Get your tickets now at ticketmaster.ie and search darts. The 2019 Boyle Sports World Grand Prix Darts at City West. Game on.
Rugby season is back, and Lifestyle Sports is giving you the chance to win something very special.
The ultimate rugby year for you and 3 mates.
You could be headed to the Champions Cup final,
the Pro 14 final,
interprovincial games of your choice,
and get match day ready with kit bags full of jerseys,
new season training gear,
€400 in vouchers, and more.
Check out lifestylesports.com.
Lifestyle Sports Rugby on Insta,
or buy any jersey in store or online for a chance to win.
Live rugby with Lifestyle Sports.
OTB AM.
I don't see that as just being England. I've played in the top division in Holland, and that's what got me invited to train with the senior team in the first place. So I don't see it as England or nothing. I see it as the best place for me to play my football when the opportunity, if the opportunity comes up. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to be in England. So I'm just seeing where it takes me, and I understand the lads here are playing at a much much higher level than what I am, but you know, they don't make me feel that way when I'm in here. I'm you know, I'm part of the squad, and obviously without Shamrock Rovers and without playing for Shamrock Rovers, I wouldn't be here. So you know, I think, do I have to move to stay in the squad? I don't know. You'd have to ask, you know, the manager, but I don't think without Shamrock Rovers, I don't think I would be in the squad. So
can you see yourself at Rovers next season?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I don't see it as a negative if I am. If you know, somebody came in and I don't know, they spoke to Rovers and they wanted me to go or whatever, it'd have to be right for me. It'd have to be right for me at that stage, but I'm not even thinking about it. I love the club, I love playing for the club. The manager there has been unbelievable for me. Stephen McPhail, Glenn Cronin, these kind of people around me have been great to me, so it'd be disrespectful for me to sit here and talk about a move.
Yeah, a man with his head on his shoulders. It's Jack Byrne talking about his future and his involvement with the Ireland squad at the moment. Phil, good morning to you.
Good morning. How are you doing?
We're going to start with this there. If you were Stephen Kenny, what would your 11 be?
Yeah, like it's a tough one, because I was very encouraged from what I saw of the 21s on Friday. There's a definite plan, and there's definitely the real
good coaching as well.
Yeah, the real problem we've had with the senior team over the last few years is midfield, where I don't buy into this that we don't have players that can play football. We do, but they're not encouraged to get on the ball and actually make things happen. And sometimes you just see the fullback gets the ball, plays it down the channel, try and squeeze the opposition and force them into a mistake. Whereas we actually, a bit of planning, we can actually get players on the ball to start moves, and this is stuff you can work on. But it just hasn't happened. Whereas if a player doesn't want to show for the ball, it's up to the manager to get on their back and say, why aren't you doing it?
Yeah, you're in the team.
As I said, these are, like, we've got players that play in the Premier League or they play in the Championship regularly. They're able to do it for their clubs. Why aren't they doing it at an international level?
Okay, so give us who you think.
I think the back four, like, obviously Randolph is nailed on. I can't really remember Randolph having a bad game for Ireland since he was subbed in the Germany game. Even that night, we didn't even expect him. We thought it was going to be David Ford.
Yeah.
So Randolph came in and actually had a major hand in the Shane Long goal.
An assist.
Yeah, it got down as an assist. So Seamus Coleman, we've had the Seamus Coleman, Matt Doherty debate, but Coleman's playing regularly now at the moment. Doherty's kind of in and out. He's had a few injuries. Duffy and Co works for me. I'm happy enough with that. And Enda Stevens, I know, had a tough enough first half, but he is a player that plays for a team week in, week out, where when he gets the ball, he's got options. At the moment, you could see him getting frustrated in the first half against Switzerland, where there's no one showing for him, so he dwells on it or he has to get rid of it, and it makes him look bad. But he's a good footballer. You ask a Sheffield United fan, he's been one of their best players for the last couple of seasons.
He's definitely come on leaps and bounds in the time that he was at Villa.
Absolutely.
What has happened to Kieran Clark? Is he just not playing football?
Yeah, he kind of fell out of favour with Rafa Benitez, and he's picked up injuries. Seems to be he picks up little niggles here and there, but Rafa Benitez then froze him out, and he hasn't really...
Needs a move.
He needs a move. Like, you have to be playing football.
Yeah.
And you just played a video there of Jack Byrne, and he's playing football week in, week out, and people say, oh, it's just the League of Ireland. But he's happy and he's playing. I'm looking forward to seeing him get some game time tonight, and it's his chance to shine. And you have to... Like, I thought Jeff Hendrick actually played well in the first half against Switzerland.
Hendrick, in the press conference pre-game, said he had seen all the criticism that he wasn't the same player he was in the Euros.
Is what he said, yeah.
But he hadn't played in the same position as he played in the Euros. Was his defence of that?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
He's played in a few different positions, where sometimes he's played on the right-hand side, sometimes he's been asked to play in a more advanced role, sometimes he's been asked to play in a sitting role. But
where was he playing in the Euros?
He was playing we started with McCarthy in midfield. Hendrick was there. Obviously Wes, you think of the Sweden game.
Yeah.
He was very good in that game. Wes started that game. See, Wes Hoolan made everyone look even better, because Wes was the player that was willing to get on the ball, and sure, he gave it away. I've no problem with a player giving it away because they take a few risks. So when I always felt as well, Robbie Brady's game excelled when Wes played as well, because they look at someone and they go, well, he's doing it, I'm going to try it, and Hendrick did that. But now we've regressed.
So who is your Wes in, if you're picking his team right now?
I don't think we have a Wes at the moment. I think
Callum Robinson is probably the closest possible thing.
Yeah, and I'd probably play Callum Robinson. Like, I'm trying to think of formations. Like, I like O'Dowd on the right because he has that ability to cut in and give Seamus Coleman space to kind of run into down the right-hand side. Josh Cullen is starting week in, week out for Charlton in the Championship. He's played every game for them in the Championship, and they're second in the Championship. They're a team going well. And
where does he play?
He plays central midfield. So he's probably going to feature tonight. He's certainly got to be an option. I thought Alan Brown was tearing it up for Preston. Now, he's not a regular for Preston anymore. He's only started 2 of their 6 Championship games. As I said, what was notable watching Hendrick, he definitely gassed out in the second half against Switzerland. I thought he was very good in the first half, breaking play up, linking things up, but
that's match fitness.
Match fitness. He said like he's doing his own bit and he's trying to play reserve games, but you can't replicate first team football, the intensity that brings. So you've like the problem for me is always going to be that central midfield. Do you want to play a 4-5-1? Do you want to play a 4-3-3, a 4-4-2? If you play a 4-4-2, will you get exposed if you don't have somebody sitting in there? I thought Glenn Whelan was very good against Switzerland, but if we're going to progress and the style is going to progress, we're going to have to move on from that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's not the ambition of the current management team, is to just get to the tournament.
That's exactly, that is Mick's.
That's his job.
That's what he's been brought in to do. Get us to the Euros. We've got games here. We want to be part of this party.
The trouble is that you're actually more likely to get there if you're trying to be progressive, as opposed to here's a midfield that hasn't really worked for us that often in the past.
Well, we've 3 games left in the group. We can't really try anything new. Like, he's going to try Conor Hourhan tonight, but there's a good chance once Matt Doherty is fit, he'll play left back against Georgia.
Do you believe Mick McCarthy that he's going to play Conor Hourhan at left back?
Well, who are the other options? You've got like James McLean has played there.
Stevens.
He's gone back to the club.
He's suspended
for the Georgia game.
Yeah. So you got the second yellow against Switzerland. So Matt Doherty and Mick McCarthy referenced it in his press conference yesterday, the bit that wasn't embargoed till late last night, that Doherty has played as a left back for Wolves for a couple of seasons before they got their Portuguese influence, that he was a left back, so he can play there, and we can and that was something that was an idea that was floated around when we were talking about having to play Coleman and Doherty, try and get both into the team. So I can understand why he goes with Stevens, gives you more balance as a natural left footer. But as I said, my worry is that central midfield. Aaron Connolly was so good on Friday night. Like, obviously Troy Parrott scored the goal, but Connolly made it. He was that good that...
Here's your team here.
I think if you put him in, if you put Connolly in there...
Now.
He'll, like... He certainly wouldn't be out of his depth. Now, people probably thinking, where's James McLean? McLean is your impact sub, where you need somebody to get the crowd going with half an hour to go. Stephen Hunt used to do it brilliantly under Trapattoni, where you'd see Hunty waiting to come on, and within a minute he'd have kicked somebody, he'd have won a free.
But everybody was awake.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like it was every time. And it became a thing where he was just having that much of an influence that Trapattoni couldn't leave him out of the starting 11. But McLean kind of showed with the goal last week that why he's in the team, because he's our fittest player. If all our players had the engines of James McLean, we would be able to press teams for 90 minutes. But unfortunately, James McLean is a fitness freak, and we don't have that. But Troy Parrott we didn't think that he was going to start on Friday. Kind of sounded like Stephen Kenny was protecting him, but he clinical finish. But it was made by Connolly, and Mick referenced Malumbi and Connolly as the two that stood out, but Connolly in particular, I just thought he definitely looks like he's going to get more game time at Brighton as well. So I'd love to see him. And said after watching Friday, I definitely felt a lot more optimistic about things going forward.
All right. And they're playing tonight in a big game?
Yeah, they're away to Sweden at 5:30. So that's a chance to make it 3 wins from 3. Now, you're in this strange situation where they could start the campaign brilliantly and then Stephen Kenny's gone to finish off the campaign. He comes in to take the senior job.
In the middle of it?
So towards the Euro 2021.
You could leave the rest of that coaching ticket in place to do that so that there's continuity there.
Yeah, but the whole situation is crazy. The fact that Mick could get us to the Euros and then he'd be gone. He effectively, thanks very much, you got us there, but you're sacked now. But
you're not sacked. Your contract has run out, and we gave you a 2-year deal, and you knew at the start what the terms were.
But the Stephen Kenny appointment, that looks like the most positive thing, where people kind of thought, why not give him the senior job straight away? But there is actually a good principle in place here where
learn the ropes, see what the rhythms of international stuff are like.
He's going to
meet the club managers now,
nourish these young players, and then when he calls them up to the senior level, say, right lads, just do what you did for me at under 21s. Play the same way.
Now,
and
it didn't work for Brian Kerr.
No, because unfortunately, I was only just thinking about this. So he comes in it's a World Cup campaign, and he starts throwing in a few youngsters, and things don't go well. Like, somebody gets caught in the ball. It's like, what are you doing playing out from the back, that kind of thing. But you have to hold your nerve. You have to just say, look, this is the way we want to play now. We've had enough of this. Kick it into the corner and chase it up and try and force the other teams into making mistakes.
I know that's we all grew up watching that. Nothing wrong with that. Didn't kill us. Well,
no, but we did have better players.
It killed us. It was a disaster.
We had better players back
What have you got for us this morning for sports news?
Okay, well, obviously that game tonight, which I can see you have the tickets for there. It's 7:45 kick-off, Ireland-Bulgaria. So there is going to be plenty of changes. You mentioned Conor Howard set to start as left back. David McGoldrick and Callum Robinson are both unavailable. So Luton striker James Collins will make his debut. Could also see Mark Travers, Jack Byrne and Josh Cullen get a first taste of international football at senior level. And just going back on last night's games, Northern Ireland lost 2-0 to Germany at Windsor Park in the Euro 2020 qualifiers. Marcel Halsenberg scored an absolute screamer just after the restart, and Serge Gnabry made sure of the points for Germany with a late goal. First defeat of the campaign for Michael O'Neill's side. Scotland were hammered 4-0 by Belgium in Glasgow, so the Scots are second last in Group I. Manchester United winger Daniel James, doing what he does best in the last few weeks, scored the only goal of the game as Wales beat Belarus 1-0 in a friendly in Cardiff. Another excellent finish from the left-hand side with his right foot. England aim to make it 4 wins from 4 in Group A of the Euro qualifiers tonight. They face Kosovo. Last night, Dundalk booked their place in the semi-finals of the FAI Cup. Daniel Kelly with a hat-trick in a 3-1 win away to Waterford. Mayo's former All-Star defender Ger Cafferty has announced his retirement from inter-county football, and he 32 years of age, represented the green and red for 11 years, made 104 senior appearances. He won an under-21 All-Ireland title, 6 Connacht titles, and that All-Star that he picked up was in 2012. And the Irish boxers made a winning start yesterday. Michael Nevin won, so there's 2 more in action at the World Elite Championships in Russia today.
David Brady's new profile pick is Jerka.
As he said to us on the 17-hour broadcast, there's no better tribute I can give to Lee Keegan than making him my profile picture, so I'm sure he'd say the same thing about Jerka.
No, Andy Moore.
Oh, sorry, Andy Moore.
Whoa, calm down there. Andy Moore's going to, Lee Keegan's going to be with us on Friday morning.
And just, Antrim light heavyweight Kane Tucker, who was obviously brought in because Joe Ward has gone pro. So Kane Tucker's only a teenager. He's fighting, and Dublin heavyweight Kirill Afanasev, both in last 64 action, and those fights due around just after midday, around lunchtime.
Kane Tucker's the name of heavyweight, right there. That's nominative determinism.
Yeah.
Right, on OTB AM this morning, we're giving you the chance to win a pair of tickets to Ireland against Bulgaria tonight in the Aviva. We have 2 pairs to give away, and the winners are Brian Mahan and Jordan Haverty. Well done, lads. You're both going to the game tonight. Just need to be able to pick up the tickets here in the office before kick-off. The correct answer was, of course, Richard Dunn. There's Kev celebrating. Good man. Richard got me out of jail there. Did we score first or did they score first? I don't even remember that game. Dunn scored first, and then Kev kicked it into our own net for 1-1 draw.
He's never smiled like that again since Kev.
And there's Bernard Dunn, world super bantamweight champion. WBC? Super bantamweight
WBA?
champion. WBA, super bantamweight. Yeah. Alphabet soup. Right, that is our lot for today. We'll be back tomorrow at 7:30. Great show for you. This is sayonara, Eoin.
Sayonara indeed, yeah, that is one of the two words I know.
Konnichiwa?
Konnichiwa is the other one, yeah.
Yeah, anything else?
No, but I will learn more. I have a little phrase book.
Great. I mean,
Where is the Kerry
going
Dublin
today?
Can you put on the Kerry Dublin game?
Georges Pompidou. Right, well, congratulations, Eoin.
Thank you very much.
Well done, you made it this far. Hopefully we'll see you back live and well.
Well, I hope so. Sure, I'll see you on the show in a couple of days.
I know, but it won't be the same.
It will not be the same. As long as I make it there alive and well, I don't care if I come home alive and well.
Well, safe travels and bring us back presents.
Thank you very much, will do.
All right, see you tomorrow. Good luck.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports.